Code Enforcement Board now comes to order. Bobby, can you give a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Weeks?
Here.
Miss Wade?
Here.
Miss Dabbs?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mr. Robinson?
Here.
Mrs. Norfleet is absent. Excuse me. Mr. DeMasis?
Here.
Mrs. Tellier?
Here.
Mrs. V. Casey? Thank you. Mr. Please, your roll call.
Thank you. Now the board attorney will lead us in an innovation and lead us in a pledge of allegiance. If you will all please stand.
Our Heavenly Father, we seek blessings on the tasks before us. Bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decisions with impartiality. We pray that our work this afternoon will find favor in your sight. This we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is the intention of this board to promote and to protect and improve the health and safety and welfare of the citizens of Tarpon Springs by providing an equitable, effective, and inexpensive method of enforcing various and final administrative offices. Whoops. Enforcing various codes within the city of Tarpon Springs. Any aggravated party may appeal a final administrative order of this board in the Current Circuit Court. Such appeal shall be filed within 30 days of execution of the order that is being appealed. Florida Statute 28.6.0105 requires any party appealing a decision of this board to have record of the proceedings to support such an appeal. The procedure of the board is as follows. First, the city presents witnesses and exhibitions, after which the alleged violator is able to ask the city witnesses any specific questions regarding the testimony. Secondly, the alleged violator is allowed to make a presentation and present his or her witnesses and exhibits. Then the city can question the alleged violator's witnesses. After both rounds of testimony, both the part of the city and on the part of the alleged violator, each party is asked to give a closing argument, first by the city and then by the alleged violator. After those three steps are taken, this board will close the public hearing portion of the case to discuss it and to make appropriate action. Before we begin the public hearings, we will have all potential witnesses stand up and be sworn in by the secretary of the board. Also, please turn off all your cell phones, either on silent or off.
Anyone that's going to speak, please stand up, face the clerk, raise your right hand, and be sworn under oath.
All right. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Be seated.
Thank you. The agenda items have been changed to the following. First, we'll see on the agenda item number 18 first, number 12 second, number 7 third, number 6 fourth, number 2 fifth, number 3 sixth, number 17 7, number 7, number 8, which will be seen, and number 13, which is number 9. Also number 15, number 10, And number 4 is number 11. If you can make those changes on your agenda sheets. Affidavits of noncompliance, number 18-800000141, 457 East Morgan Street. Mrs. Cross. Is there a Miss Cross here? Would you come forward and get behind that microphone so we can hear you? And what your relationship to the owner is that you are?
I am the owner.
Okay, thank you.
It's going to proceed.
The city's going to proceed with evidence.
This is an affidavit of noncompliance, case number 18-800000141. The property address is 457 East Morgan Street. This was relative to the Code Enforcement Board order from June 14th of 2018 for violation of City Codes 8-22, 8-40, 8-52, 36.03. I conducted the final inspection based on the board order. That was December 14th was the compliance date. I conducted the final inspection on or around December 18th, at which point the affidavit of noncompliance was signed, and I found that the property was not in compliance with those codes.
Do you have any questions of the city in reference to what they're showing as evidence?
Okay, on the compliance,
You speak into the microphone,
on
please.
the compliance, one was,
Tony,
board.
could you sit down and speak into
Oh,
the
okay.
microphone?
No
Thank you.
problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take your time.
On the compliance of the different ones, the board was saying,
Ross, could
Can you
you
hear me?
pull it closer? We
Okay.
got somebody taping.
compliance
it.
of possibly either bringing, the property, everything up to date, or, having it demolished. Right now, I have seen someone, they're going to file for the, city to give them a permit to demolish the house. They say that it could be brought up to date, but it'd been more expensive than to just take it down. So that's an ongoing process. The other,
Hang on just a minute, Ms. Cross. Do you have any questions for Officer Gasson? Any questions at all
Okay,
of what
questions?
he's presented?
the 4 violations there,
Yes.
accumulation of trash, you say they're still there?
When I inspected it in December, ma'am, there was still some, we didn't have a code board in December,
Okay.
so the last time I looked at it was back in December.
Okay,
But it's, with compliance, it's kind of all or nothing. You have to comply with all of the codes, not just one of them and then have the other 3. Do you understand?
okay, well, I'm
So-
saying the major one was a suggestion of either bringing up the code or having it demolished, and I'm in the process of having it demolished. I thought the code was,
If
like,
you'll hang on just a second with that.
okay,
Um,
because that was,
mhm. Do you have any questions for the owner?
I do not.
Okay. You can go ahead and state your case, Ms. Cross.
okay. He said all or nothing, so I thought that was, these were in compliance except for the house, which is the big thing, and that's what I'm in the process of doing, as far as, trying to save it. It was costing too much. I didn't know it was so expensive, even so, to demolish it, but I'm getting the process of getting that done. The guy told me it could vary from, for getting the permit from X number of days to 7 weeks, so hopefully it won't be that long, but that is my objective, is to get it done.
Okay.
And he said once they give the permit, he could be able to do it in 3 days. So that's what I'm asking for, this to be reduced or not to be there, because the final end, I thought it would be able to be done at this point. So when I would come, we'll have pictures that it was totally not there. So, and I had no idea how much things cost like that, as far as redoing it or demolish. Both are expensive, but the redoing is more expensive investment than the demolish of it.
Okay, thank you.
And then it would be everything, he said all or nothing, the total thing will be in compliance because it will not be there anymore.
Right. Thank you. Anything to add, sir?
I mean, obviously, this is, I don't know if Ms. Cross understands that the fines have been accruing on the property since December at $100 a day. That's what this board ordered. So until it's brought into compliance is the only time at which those fines will cease. I don't know if you understand that. It's currently drawing fines at $100 a day.
Okay, and when I was at that meeting, I thought that it said until January was the dates I had in my notes.
Your
But it-
deadline, it started January, it looks like the affidavit of noncompliance will be on the January 10th code board, but your fine started on December 15th of 2018.
Okay, well, I asked that that be reduced because right now it's X number of thousand just for the demolishing, which I'm in the process of borrowing that from someone. I thought it was everything would be done prior to that, but financially, it's a strain right now just to do that. I'm just talking to the board as far as, I'm not talking to even Sagasson, but I'm saying that number one is to come in compliance. I know you have fines, but that's extreme in addition to what I'm gonna have to pay to have that house taken down. Financially, I cannot afford it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cross. We're going to close the public portion of this meeting now, and I'll entertain a motion. No motion. Affidavit of non-compliance. Could you give us an idea of, it's actually an idea of we're looking for only the prosecution costs at the present time?
The prosecution costs in this case were $167.50,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe that affidavit's gone before the board. And then, as I stated, it's an affidavit of noncompliance. Right, attached to the back of that.
Okay,
I move based on testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that the respondent failed to timely comply with this board's prior order within the time prescribed and to award the city $167.50 for the costs incurred in prosecuting this case.
can I get a second?
Second.
Roll call, Bobby, please.
Mrs. Tellier?
Aye.
Yes. Mr. DeMossis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Creamer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes. Ms. Cross, the board has found that you have some prosecution costs that you need to pay right away, and that your $100 a day continues until the property becomes compliant.
Can I ask a question or can I address that?
You can ask a question.
How does the city award $100 a day when you cannot afford it? Is that gonna be like $5 a month or $10 or whatever? I can't afford 100. And when it was done on that day, it was someone went before me and y'all did $25 a day, and then you did me 100. I have a child. I don't have as many hours has been cut, and then I got to pay $100 a day plus
Ms. Cross,
demolishing.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there's a process by which you can request a
Okay.
reduction.
Okay.
And if you speak to someone in the city, they'll be able to help you with that, or perhaps Officer Gasson can help
Okay.
you later.
All right.
But
Thank you.
we appreciate your time today.
All right. Thank
And I
you.
hope everything works out.
Number 12.
12.
Who was 12?
That's correct.
Eighteen 800000969 107 East Lime Street, Safford Fuel LLC.
How you doing, sir?
We're fine. Can I ask your name, sir?
Wasim Abbas. Wasim Abbas.
Abbas?
Yes, sir.
And what is your relationship to Safford Fuel?
I'm a manager, property manager
Okay.
to the whole plaza.
Hear from the city first.
Thank you. Case number 18-800000969. The property address is 107 East Lime Street, currently owned by Safford Fuel LLC. I'm Officer Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department Code Enforcement. Exhibit number 1 going before the board are all the photographs taken of the property from the beginning of the case up until yesterday. And all the exhibits that were given to the violator are exact copies of what's being presented to the board. Exhibit number 2 are all of my notices, to include the notice of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 are administrative docs, include a case summary, property appraiser and tax collector records, and any associated emails. And exhibit number 4 is an affidavit posting and a copy of the sign. All of my notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. All notice of violations and notice of hearing are sent both return receipt requested as well as first-class mail. And Mr. Chairman, please accept all exhibits into the record as evidence.
Bobby?
Yes, sir.
So we need to ask him. Sir, have you had the opportunity to review the exhibits that the city is presenting into evidence?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any objection to them coming into evidence?
No objection, but I did most of the work.
Okay, you're going to be able to explain that as you have the opportunity to speak. We just want to talk about the exhibits right now. No objection, so.
Okay. Do you have any evidence or questions for the city?
He's
Yeah.
not finished, Judd.
Sorry.
Yeah, he needs to finish his case.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. This case initially started on December 1st of 2018. Conducted area inspections. I noted violations on the property. The property is a vacant lot. It does have a city address, but it's a vacant lot behind a convenience store. Most people know it as Long Ashes, right in the area of Lime Street and Pinellas, between Pinellas and Safford.
Oh,
The vacant lot on the north side of the road. While I was there, I noticed there was a couple of abandoned vehicles on the property. There was trash and debris on the property, and the property seems to be used as generally as a dump, and it's not being maintained. The notice of violation was mailed and on December 4th, and it was returned to us, refused acceptance. On December 19th, I conducted a reinspection. Originally, the 2 vehicles that I noted had been removed. Now there was a new red Ford pickup truck with no tags on it, replacing the other 2. And there was still trash and debris, and it was overgrown in areas, specifically along the north side, which is an alleyway. North side of the property has a chain link fence, and that right-of-way, which is required to be maintained, was not being maintained. It had pretty high grass. On December 19th, the notice of hearing was mailed. We did get back a return receipt from that. On December 29th, I posted the property. On January 9th, I conducted a final inspection. The lot had been mowed. The right-of-way on the north side that I noted previously still hadn't been maintained. There's still some trash and debris on the property. In fact, I don't know if the board saw, this was one of the photographs that I took yesterday. This is some of the debris that's still on the property. And then I can also show you, this is the north side fence line that needs to be maintained. Right along there is an alleyway. And also on the north side of that alleyway is not being maintained, but it's not owned by Sanford Fuel. Those are primarily what's left. All the vehicles have been removed. The lot's been mowed except for that right of way and except for some debris. We've missed a couple of meetings. He's had contact with the office, but we just haven't been able to meet in person. And like I said, this was yesterday's inspections. So basically at this point in time, the violations before the board are 8-22, which is the accumulation of trash, 8-40 duty to maintain property, private property to prevent nuisance conditions, and then the nuisance prohibitions themselves, which is 852, debris, mowing your yard, maintaining the right of way, et cetera. And those are the only violations I have before the board at this time.
Thank you, sir. Do you have any questions
Yes,
for the
sir, I
city?
do.
Questions?
I'm not agree. Is a dump place or is it dump a trash there, and it's a place between a lot of house, and they are like a sink house, like it's closed. Sometimes you see people living, sometimes you see people not living there. So people living in that house, they trash over there. It's no way like from my side or my end or my employee dump any trash because we have a dump. You can check with the dump people. I had a 4-time pickup a week, so there is no reason to take a trash from store and dump to the back property. And as officer mentioned, take a car. We took a car. The truck he mentioned, we replaced to the cars, and we bring a truck. We did not bring no car, no trucks. These are neighbors been parking over there, and I've been have issue. You can check with the police. We had a several car on them, but finally I towed away. It's clear, and I mowed the yard, and I cleaned up this morning. The one he just, they show you picture has been gone. The bucket and little bit trash, as if somebody can see, same place is clean now. Okay, now the alley thing he's talking about is the grass coming from outside in the street. So I'm not paying no money to clean street. That's I think a city or whoever on it. So on my end, as whatever he mentioned in mail is been cleaned, and I took a picture back to you if you want to see it. So basically, it's not a trash place. It's people misusing my lot.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Officer Gasson?
No.
Questions at all?
No
Okay.
question, no sir.
Thank you. Does anybody on the board have questions for either? Officer Gasson or the respondent?
Sorry to saying again. If you see the picture across the street is a sofa there, you can imagine what kind of neighborhood I'm at. So they sleep there, they sit there. It's really police has to watch them to not making people property look like a mess. But I do agree. Yes, I need to move my lot at least twice a month, and I will do it instead of doing it once a month. I'm gonna do twice a month. And same time, city has to be, or whoever on a street has to be responsible. The grass come to my lot or my my property. I am responsible on my side, but on the other side, really I can do nothing about it.
Okay, where do we go from here?
So closing arguments.
Basically, city ordinance requires that property owners that abut a right-of-way are required to maintain up to that right-of-way, which does include the outside of this fence because the alley is a right-of-way. So the property owners are required to maintain that. As we all know, if we own homes in the city, we have to maintain that area from the sidewalk to the street, which is also the right-of-way. From the fence to the actual dirt portion of the road is the right-of-way, and you have to maintain that. So that's this area that he's speaking of. Basically, I hadn't inspected it today. There was just some minor items left to clean up, which shouldn't take very long. This would probably be the only thing. This property's been before this board before numerous times. It's just changed ownership. So, unfortunately, as we all are aware, location sometimes can affect that, but it's incumbent upon the property owner to stay on top of that, and that's one of the issues with the city and the nuisance. 8-40 specifically covers preventing it from becoming a nuisance condition. So nobody's saying that necessarily the property is a dump, but unfortunately the property owners have to become responsible to maintain it and keep it clean, and that's why we're here. So as you can see from the photographs, some minor issues still left with it, but moving forward, we want to continue to maintain it in this condition, and that's all the city has at this point.
And yes, sir, we do try, and we will try our best. We have around 17 properties like that around Tampa Bay area, and we are very aware with it. But the neighborhood I'm at right now, it's just not really easy to pick up each thing every day, And like I say, you guys can see the picture he had it is already clean. Like the day he sent it, I started working same day. Even I was on 3 days vacation with my family. So, I started working on the same day, but I will try my best to, keep it maintained and make sure city of Tarpon or any city, no matter where, it has to be clean anyway. So I will make sure it's clean. But same time, I have a big concern on the neighborhood. Like you can see the picture, is a sofa there. People sleep there. People eat there. People cook there. You know, so I really need help on that side as well. You know, like people just hanging around my property and do what they want to do. So
Okay, thank you.
yes, sir.
We're going to close the public portion of the case now. I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violation, sections City Code 8-22, 8-40, and 8-52 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondent was in violation thereof.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion by the board? Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mrs. Tellier,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs,
Yes.
Ms. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Weeks.
Yes.
Please roll call.
Ask the city, Officer Gasson, for any recommendations and timeframes you have.
I think based on what the gentleman stated, he's pretty much got it cleaned up, so 14 days is probably reasonable to finish up. And then this is as these owners are the first ones in violation, $25 a day. After that, if not taken care of in that 2 weeks, would be the city's recommendation.
Thank you. I need a motion.
I move that the respondent shall have until January 30th to bring the property into compliance with code sections 8-22, 8-40, and 8-52, or suffer a fine of $25 per day for each day thereafter that the respondent remains in violation of said code sections.
Second.
We're going to close the public portion of this case.
We just need a,
Any discussion from the board?
Yeah, I think it's, not everybody understands repeat violator, what that means. And maybe this gentleman might like to understand that. The purpose of cleaning up the property once is great, but it has to be maintained that.
He's saying that, do you understand that we understand that you have issues in the neighborhood, but you're the property owner, so it's your job to keep that maintained all the time. Otherwise, you become a repeat violator and the fines increase and the problems increase. They're not going to cite you for one day somebody dumping trash, but somebody has to regularly check this property to keep it maintained.
Okay, what if somebody just come bring a car park?
we're not going to have any more discussion in the middle of a motion. We need to go ahead and vote on the motion that's on the table. The public portion of the meeting has been closed. So you have a motion on the floor, finding him in compliance, finding Sanford Fuel LLC in violation, giving them until January 30th, 2019 to come into compliance or suffer a $25 a day fine. So that's the motion on the floor.
Bobby, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Tellier,
Yes.
Mr. DeMossis,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes?
Mr. Weeks.
Yes.
Please roll call.
Sir, the order will come to you in about 10 days. It'll be mailed,
Okay.
and you'll see that.
Okay, before I take off, I want to understand. So the thing has like pending things. I got it done before 30th of this month.
You have 14 days
14 days to.
Through the 30th.
to get Officer Gasson out there and, see it all pretty and cleaned up.
Okay, so it has to be done whatever left over 14 days, right?
You have to do it by January 30th. That was the board order. So it's a little bit more than 14 days.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I will not charge anything until 30th of this month, right?
that is correct.
Right.
Okay, and just a question, like, how come we can't reach to the, code enforcement officer because they don't have direct numbers. When I call office,
Yep.
they,
You can talk to Officer Gasson about
Okay, I
that
will.
after the meeting.
yes, sir.
After the meeting,
That's fine.
okay?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. So before I take off, I have to see him, or I can go.
After the meeting, you can see him.
Okay. Thank you.
Next agenda item is number 7 on your agenda. And this is case 18-800000721, 411 East Harrison Street. John Aaron,
Yes.
third. Welcome, John.
You ready for the city to proceed?
Okay, city proceed, please.
Thanks, Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department. Code enforcement case before the board is 18-800000721. The property address is 411 East Harrison Street. The property owner, John Aaron III. I believe he was given evidence prior to the case.
Can't hear you.
I believe it was given evidence.
Mr. Aaron, you've had the opportunity to review the documents that have been presented to you today. You have any,
Yes, sir.
you have any legal objection for them coming into evidence?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Exhibit number 1 going before the board are all of my photographs. Exhibit number 2 are all my notices to include notice of violation and notice of hearings. Exhibit number 3 are administrative docs to include the property appraiser and tax collector records as well as any officer emails. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All my photographs and exhibits that were given to the violator are exact copies of what's being presented to this board. All my notices were mailed to the property owner of record based on the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. All notice of violations and notice of hearings are sent both return receipt requested as well as first-class mail. And Mr. Chairman, please accept these into the record as evidence.
Bobby?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The case started September 6, 2018. Originally, the original complaint was the grass was overgrown, especially in the rear of the house. There's trash and debris on the property, old chairs, etc. And there was trash cans left out curbside. On September 10th, the courtesy letter was mailed to the property owner. On September 26th, I conducted a reinspection, and fundamentally there was no change to the original violations. On September 28th, the notice of violation was mailed. It was returned to our office signed. On November 6th of 2018, I conducted another reinspection. Fundamentally, again, there was no change. At that point, I did add the vehicle as a violation because at the time the right front tire was flat, but the yard had been mowed, I noticed at that time. So we sent an amended notice of violation on November the 6th. It was returned to our office signed as well. Conducted another reinspection on November 28th, and it was still in violation. Basically, the car is still there, and there was still a little bit of trash and debris around the property. On September 28th, the notice of hearing was mailed. That return receipt had not been received into the office. On September 29th, I posted the property. I'm sorry, December 29th, I posted the property. On December 31st, we received a phone call from the property owner, explained why the sign was posted in the yard, and gave him information about this code board hearing. I conducted a re-inspection on January 9th, and the vehicle is still on the property. There's still some areas that it's overgrown. I didn't significantly see any trash per se. There were some things out in front of the house. I don't have any pictures more recent than November 28th. I didn't take any on yesterday when I drove by. So the only ones I have are what the board has in front of them, with the last one being, I believe, November 28th. And some of those items had been cleaned up. So basically what's fairly representative at this point is the vehicle that's parked out front. It's still there, and it appears to be inoperable. And as I stated, some of the grass in the backyard. So what's before the board at this point in time is a violation of City Ordinance 8-22, 8-40, 8-52, and 40.00, which deals with the vehicle. And, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have at this point.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Officer Gasson?
I have one question, Mr. Chairman. The 822 accumulation of trash, I was only able to view the photographs that you presented, and you indicated in your testimony that 11/28 is the last date of your photographs, is there any significant increase, decrease, or would you say that the accumulation of trash is similar today as it was, or is similar on the 9th as it was on the 28th of November?
It would be decreased.
Decrease.
Yeah, I
But
think there was still a little, but primarily it had been predominantly cleaned up. If I remember correctly, I think on the west side of the house, there were still a few items, but it was significantly better as far as trash goes.
Okay. Being significantly better, was it still, in your assessment, in violation?
It's either going to fall under trash or debris. The two, it depends on a person's perspective sometimes. Does it fall under equipment, the definition of debris under 852, or is it truly trash? Because without going up.
Well,
and
right now you have
touching it,
822 and 852.
because a lot of times they kind of play together. In some cases, debris is like mechanical equipment that doesn't work, but if it does work and somebody just left it out there, it becomes trash. So you kind of a little bit get into semantics with that.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
It's an answer. I appreciate your answer. I'm not sure.
Excuse me?
But
Sir?
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Okay.
We'll get to you.
I'm finished. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Aaron, do you have any questions for the city?
Well, I was going to explain he said on the west side of my house, that's where my trash cans, I line them up along the side of the porch.
Do you have any other questions for the city?
Oh, this photograph in Exhibit 1, I heard him mention about chairs in the backyard. These chairs are not in my yard that's showing here. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay, all right. Because the other chairs and
That's your
stuff,
neighbor's chairs.
stuff that was on the front, I've put those in the back. Those are chairs, lawn chairs. As far as the car, the tag had expired on that car in September of 2018, and I'm planning on getting it back on the road, but I haven't been able to. Had some financial problems getting my property taxes paid, which were 3 years behind, and a number of other things. And I needed to get some extension of time, to get it straightened out, because I have a number of fines that range in a cost of close to $1,000. And what is that paper? But I need to get, it needs an extension in time, because I have to get insurance, I have to get my tags, I have to get my license reinstated, and I have 2 fines that and over 800 and some change that I have to pay, before I can do any of this, as far as getting my license, the tag, insurance, and everything on the car.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody on the board have a question for the respondent? Okay.
Because the car is operable.
Could you go ahead
I
and
start it up, every once in a while, but I don't drive it because
I
the
understand.
tag is expired.
Sir, does it have a tag on it now?
It has a tag, but it's not a current tag.
Okay, so, all right. So there's no current tag.
Right. And see, before I can get my tag, I have to get my license reinstated. I have 2 fines I have to pay. Like I said, they range over $800. And, like I say, as far as the car being operable, it runs.
I'm not
I have
sure
to
that that's the point.
get insurance, and all that.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron. We're going to close the public portion of this case.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I have a
I'm sorry.
question for Officer Graston, just so that I have
Go
it
right
clear in my mind. Would the fact that a car not have a valid tag on it, would that make it an inoperable vehicle?
Yes, under the definition of the city code. it
All right,
does.
that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Close the public portion of this case now, and ask the board to give me a motion.
I move based on testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violation, Sections 8-22 8-40, 8-52, and 40.00 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondent was in violation thereof.
Second, please.
I'll second it.
Roll call, Bobby.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Talier?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
That completes your roll call.
Motion passed.
City recommendation has to.
City recommendation.
It's okay.
City
If I could,
recommend.
Mr. Aaron, how much time do you think you need?
Well, my wife and I on limited income. I figure about at least a couple of months. You know, we get our checks, our Social Security checks.
Okay.
I mean,
Mr. Chairman,
it's going to take a bit. It's going to take over 1,000 for me to, get everything straight.
Thank you, sir.
I think based on the information, the city would recommend 60 days and $25 a day is fine.
I'd like to have a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the respondent shall have until, February 27th, bring the property into compliance with code sections 8-22, 8-40, 8-52, and city code 40.00, or suffer a fine of $25 per day thereafter for each day the respondent remains in violation of such code
Second.
sections.
Been seconded. Bobby, can we get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Talier?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
No?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
You want me to summarize?
Summer,
Okay. So, Mr. Aaron, I'm going to go ahead and summarize what has happened. The Code Enforcement Board has found you in violation of the cited code sections. You've been given until February 27th, 2019 to come into compliance. Should you fail to bring the property into compliance within that time period, you'll be fined $25 a day. If you don't understand what you need to do to bring the property into compliance, you can talk to the code enforcement officer after the meeting today. You'll get the order. It'll come in the mail to you. It'll be about 10 days down the road. You have any other questions?
I was going to say, like I'm going to need like at least 2 checks, and they come on the 3rd of each month.
Sir, the Code Enforcement Board heard what you said,
Yeah, okay.
and they have made a ruling.
Okay.
Okay, so that's where we're at right now. So try to get the property into compliance by February 27th. If you can't get the car in inoperable condition, get it off your property, and then you would be in compliance, then the fine would not run. So if you have any questions, like I said, call the Code Enforcement Department after the meeting today, if you have any other questions. We need to move on to the next case we have on. Thank you.
number 6 is next. 18-8000585, 100 North Ring Avenue, Ingrid Jones. Or afternoon. Go ahead.
Okay. I know she was presented with evidence and her relationship
Were you
to the
presented
property.
with the evidence in this case?
Yes, I have been.
Do you accept that evidence as
I
fact?
do.
Thank you.
Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department Code Enforcement. Case before the board is 18-800000585. The property address is 100 North Ring Avenue. The property address is listed owner is Ingrid Jones. Information going before the board, exhibit number 1 are all the photographs that I've taken in this case. Exhibit number 2 are all my notices of violation and notice of hearings. Exhibit number 3 are the administrative documents, case summary, property appraiser, and tax collector database records, and any related emails. Exhibit number 4 is an affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All the photographs and exhibits that were given to the violator are exact copies of what's being presented to this board. All my notices were mailed to the property owner of record based on the Pinellas County property appraiser and tax collector databases. All my notice of violations and notice of hearings are sent both certified return receipt as well as first-class mail. And Mr. Chairman, please accept all these exhibits into the record as evidence.
Bobby?
Yes,
please.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. This case started out originally on August 8th of 2018. This is a 2-story building at the corner of Ring and Orange Street. There are numerous windows boarded up. There's Brazilian pepper trees on the property. It was overgrown, especially on the east side and into the roadway. There were trees overgrowing the sidewalk on the south side. There are inoperable vehicles with expired registration, trash and debris on the property, old televisions, pile of unknown debris in the rear. Screens were damaged and not intact. I'll get what's kind of an interesting part of the ordinance about insect screens here in a second, but at the time it was a violation. Insect screens are required under city code, under International Property Maintenance Code, between May and October. So at the time it was August, they're required. We've now kind of passed out into the time frame where insect screens aren't necessarily required anymore. There was a number of windows that were either broken or missing, and trees and vines growing into the building around the patio area. And there was a rear shed that appeared to be in very poor condition. On August 13th, the city mailed a notice of violation to the property owner, which we received the return receipt signed. I conducted a reinspection December 19th, noted significant changes. The vehicle had been removed from the rear. There was still some trash and debris on the property, but you could tell some work had been in progress. Some of the windows were still broken, and some others were boarded up. And basically, at that point, it still wasn't in compliance. On December 19th of 2018, the notice of hearing was mailed. We did not receive a return receipt at that point in time. On December 29th, I posted the property, and then I conducted a final inspection yesterday on January 9th. Basically, there's been significant improvements to the property. There is still some of the windows boarded up. I couldn't tell if all of the glass had been fixed, which puts it into the glazing issue. I'd have to probably get onto the property and actually look at the windows to see if they're all intact. Most of the trash have been cleaned up. We're dealing with still a little bit on the north side of the shed. I spoke to Ms. Jones prior to the meeting, and there's still a couple of things left to be cleaned up. I would probably say she's about 90% there, but unfortunately, she's still not completely in compliance. So that puts before the board violations of City Code 8-22, the accumulation of trash, 8-40 and 8-52, which we're familiar with, the duty to maintain private property and the nuisance prohibitions. We use City Ordinance 6-1, which adopts the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code, and that's the purpose of having that. Under it, I have 30413, which deals with windows and door frames, which requires that all windows and door frames on a structure be intact and in good condition and safe. 304.13.1 deals with glazing, which is actually the glass material. You have to have glass, approved glass, not plastic or wood, in your windows. 304.13.2 continues on with having window openings, closed off. And then, as I stated earlier, 304.14 requires that any window that's open has insect screens, but it's only required between the months of May and October. So we more or less could comply it because she's not required to have them now, or moving forward with that. And that's all I have for the board at this point in time.
Does the board have any questions for Officer Gasson?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
When you say insect screen, if it's not the time that they have to be there, but glass has to be in the window or something in that window other than a screen.
Correct. You still have to have glass. Yeah.
Officer, would you agree that in rendering any decision in this case that we not consider 304-14?
I think that's reasonable because technically it's not required at this point in time, so it'd be very hard to put somebody not in
You
compliance.
wouldn't object if we were not to consider that?
I would not object, correct.
Do you have any questions for the city staff as the respondent?
I don't have any questions. I know that this is, I know that these things are wrong.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. So, staff,
We just need,
summarize
I
the
would-
case?
we want to make sure she makes her presentation.
I would like to mention that my mother owns the property, and she's 90 and she has dementia. I live there and take care of her. I've been doing the work, and my brother had his leg amputated. He's still in a wheelchair. He normally does like he would be doing the windows. He is doing the windows. He's been having a lot of complications. Basically, that's why we're not there yet.
Okay. Do you have any questions of the respondent?
No, I do not. Thank you.
I have a question over. How much time do you need to bring the property into compliance?
I think if I could have 3 months, I could get it done.
Are you going to hire a contractor to do that?
My brother's been working on the windows. We rented a lift and got the boards down. That was from the hurricane. Had the trees trimmed. I'm doing cutting up the wood and putting it out. If we have to, we'll hire someone to get it done. But as of right now, we've been doing the work.
Okay.
Summarize, Mr.
I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Would you like to summarize in any way?
Well, you can see there was a lot there. And what you don't see in the pictures, there was a trailer, an 8-foot trailer, and there was 180 blocks. This is my father's property, and he passed away. I know that it needed to be done, and I would just like to have a chance to keep working on it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to close the public portion of this case and call for a motion.
I move based on testimony, evidence, and facts presented and the law that at the time of the alleged violation, sections 8-22, 8-40, 8-52, and under the city building code 6-1, IPMC 302-7, 304.13, 304.13.1, and 304.13.2 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondent was in violation thereof.
Mr. Chairman, could I point out that, at least according to the documentation that I have in front of me, it indicates that 302.7 accessory structure, it indicates complied. So I wonder why that would be under consideration.
I'd like to amend my motion and remove that number. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Ford.
Can I get a second? Second. Bobby, can you call roll, please?
I have a question, I'm sorry. I also,
Ms. Dabbs seconded.
yes, sir. According again on here, is 822 in compliance or out of compliance because it was named in this order? It's complied on my paperwork, I'm
You're
sorry.
correct. Thank you. I need to remove that as well.
And we did remove 304.14 also?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Nope, thank you. Just get it clear.
Your roll call will be with Mrs. Tellier,
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Weeks.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Oh, do you have any recommendations? I'm getting it down. It's close.
You know, she advised that she needed 90 days to take care of that. The case has been going on for quite a while, but she is doing the work herself, so I think 90 days is reasonable. She doesn't have she has actually no significant history with the city, so I think falling in line with everything else today, $25 a day is probably reasonable.
$25 in 3 months.
And 90 days.
I move
Go ahead.
that the respondent shall have until April 1st to bring the property into compliance with City Code 8-40, 8-52, Building Code Adopted 6-1, Sections 304.13, 304.13.1, and 304.13.2, or suffer a fine of $25 per day for each day thereafter that the respondent remains in violation thereof.
Second.
Bobby?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Talier,
Yes.
Mr. DeMassis,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Weeks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Want me to summarize? Okay. So, Ingrid Jones has been found in violation of those code sections that have been cited. Is that your mother, Ingrid Jones?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, so that's why I wanted to make sure. So, you've been given until April 1st, 2019 to come into compliance with those code sections. Should you fail to come into compliance by that time, a $25 a day fine will begin to run. If you don't understand what you need to do to bring the property into compliance, see Officer Gasson after the meeting today. You'll get a written order. It'll come to you in about 10 days in the mail. Okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
I want to thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is number 2 on our agenda items. 18-8000421, 58 Reed Street, Stephen Larshed and
Anastasia
Anastasia
Conger.
I really slopped that up, didn't I?
They were presented with evidence.
You have an opportunity to review the evidence that's being presented by the city, and if so, do you have any objections to it being received into evidence? I'm sorry, no? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department Code Enforcement Case before the board 18-800000421. The property address is 58 Reed Street. The listed owners Stevet Larshield, Anastasia Conger, and Ella Hurley. Going before the board, exhibit number 1 are all of my photographs. Exhibit number 2 are all my notices, include the notice of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3, administrative documents, include the case summary, property appraiser, and tax collector databases, and any related emails. And then the October and December Historic Preservation Board letters. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All the photographs and exhibits that were given to the violator, exact copies of what's presented to this board. All my notices were mailed to the property owners of record, based on the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. All notice of violations and notice of hearing are sent both return receipt as well as first-class mail. And, Mr. Chairman, please accept these exhibits into the record as evidence.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Bobby?
So we're back to him to complete his case.
Thank you.
I get confused.
This case started back June 15th of 2018. At the time, our building inspector was Bob Welch. We received a complaint about the property and some issues with it. So the the building inspector, Bob Welch, went to the property with me, as well as apparently there was a neighbor here to the east who allowed us onto his property to view the subject property. So we viewed it from the east primarily. Some of it could be viewed from the right of way.
You said June 15th of 18?
June 15th of 2018.
Thank
Correct.
you.
There were numerous violations at the time. The roof was becoming separated from the base. Siding is in poor condition. There were numerous holes in it. There were numerous windows that had broken glass. The shed in the back is in extremely poor conditions, dilapidated and falling apart and leaning over. Fencing is in poor condition. There was missing pickets, falling door, generally poor upkeep. And per the neighbor, which I did not witness, but there were raccoons and rats which frequent the interior of the house and the rear structure. On June 19th of 2018, the notice of violation and a notice of hearing were both mailed. They were both returned to our office signed. On July 20th, I conducted a reinspection, spoke to planning and zoning. The house is in a historic district and possibly contributing, so they need to go before the Historic Preservation Board. At that point, we were leaving it on the agenda. We started to delay it because the fact that we had to bifurcate over to HPB to deal with some of the issues. One of the biggest issues that comes up is the shed in the back, as you can see from the photographs. Again, I'll establish this with the board and with the other side. I'm not a building inspector, but I was able to clearly tell that the shed in the rear is leaning, which primarily in most cases, a structural engineer would agree that if they lean, they're not in good shape. So you can tell from the pictures the shed's not in good shape. That seems to be, I believe, and they can enlighten us a little bit more, the biggest contention with HPB is either the demolition of that exterior structure or the preservation of that exterior structure, and I think that's the reason why we're kind of here in the first place. Moving forward, we'll fast forward a little bit. September 10th and the October 2nd, we did send deferral notices for the code board hearings at the time. On December 4th, HPB continued the application because they still needed some basic information that the board requested in the October HPB meeting, which was a cost estimate for the repair of the outbuilding and a cost estimate for the demolition of the outbuilding. On December 10th, an email was sent to the property owners letting them know that this code case was moving forward, and we're here. And then December 29th, I posted the property. I did conduct a reinspection yesterday. There was some significant work done to the house itself. It looks like all the windows are intact. It looks like some of the siding was fixed. Basically, the outbuilding is still there and is a problem. I can't testify to any of the insect harborage, and I was actually going to pose that as a question when we got to that point, and it'll determine whether or not that violation still exists. And I did notice that, as I stated, the roof or the house appears to be in pretty good condition. So some of those violations are kind of off the table, and the shed is still there, still an issue. There were still some issues with the chain link fence on the north side, but it looked like a lot of the wooden fence had either been removed, and then I wasn't privy to be able to go into the backyard. I did notice there was some tree debris and some minor debris in the backyard that's from trees and such. So, of the list of violations, 8-40, duty maintain private property, 36.03, which deals with fences, walls, and hedges, the chain link fence not being repaired, and some other minor issues. At the time, we were using 9-1 to adopt IPMC. IPMC hadn't changed, so the codes were basically the same, but 9-1 was the city code we used to adopt the following IPMC codes, which deals with 301.3, which is vacant lands and structures, which deals with the shed has to be kept in good shape, and so on and so forth. 8-40 also deals with buildings in poor condition, so the two of them kind of deal with that shed. I've removed 304.13 and 304.13.1, and I don't know if the board got the updated information, but those are in compliance. Those deal with the windows, so we're not going to be discussing those. They seem to take care of those. 304.7 is roofs and drainage, and I may not be going forward with the board once again I get some questions answered, because I'm not an engineer, but it looks like there was roof work done. So I'd like to ask them about it. And then, as I already stated, 3091 is pest infestation. 3025 is rodent harborage that we may not be considering. And the last one is 8-52, nuisance prohibitions. That deals with the debris and things like that in the backyard. So that's what I have before the board. When I get the opportunity to ask a couple of questions of the violators, we might have thinned that list down a little bit. And that's all I have at this point.
Thank you. The board have any questions for Officer Gass?
I did. The initial complaint was issued from a citizen complaint.
I believe so. In all honesty, I don't ever really look to see who complains. I just go out and do the work.
Any other questions? Respondents, do you have any questions of Officer Gasson? Just questions.
Not really questions, just statements. If you want to ask your questions to us, then we can answer them accordingly.
Okay, well, you need to present your case first, and then he'll have an opportunity to cross-examine.
Okay.
So if you don't have any questions, do you have a case you want to?
Yeah, well, so according to the, talking about the chain link fence, that's not on our property. Number one, that's the house behind us. So we can't remove that one.
And also in the original complaint and the pictures that were given to us, it talked about only the wooden fence, and we did have that removed. So we knew nothing about the chain link fence, and as far as we were concerned, it wasn't. So today I did go back there and look at it, and the only damage to that fence, it looks like the people who lived behind us had a tree that had fallen that we ended up having to get rid of, and it must have landed on the chain link fence, and it's indented at the top. But other than that, I don't see any damage, and like I said, that's not our. So we did take care of the fence that were in the pictures. It's been removed, and that's the chain link fence.
And as far as the shed, we did have a contractor come out and give us an estimate on repairs as well as demolition. We do have a letter here from them saying that we cannot renovate that shed. We are going back and forth right now with the Historical Society because they don't want us to tear it down. However, it's not, it can't be fixed. We need to tear it down. So that's why the shed hasn't been touched yet, is we're still working with them to figure out what we need to do. I do want to say that when we did go over there before this meeting, there is branches in the yard in a pile that looked like it was cut from the neighbor's yard and thrown, the one that complains, and thrown on our property. And there's also palm tree branches that was in that pile. There's no palm tree back there, but the neighbor has palm tree. So, yeah. So that's why the branches were in the yard today.
I also want to make a statement about rodents and raccoons. We have never seen anything on the property. I have put down traps, nothing has been caught. I have never seen a raccoon, and it claims in there that the neighbor has seen these raccoons inside the house.
There'd be no way for
How
them to
did they
get
get
in.
in, first of all? And how did he see them since we don't even have electricity? So it's just been one problem after another with this neighbor. And I think a lot of this is just on hearsay. I mean, I don't see any evidence. I've been out there numerous times and I haven't seen anything to support his claim.
Is the house unoccupied?
It's unoccupied.
And
Summary?
No, yes, questions?
Oh, question.
Just a couple of quick ones. Regarding the rodents and stuff, at some point in time, I thought I heard you guys had gotten an exterminator to come out.
We did, just
Okay.
in case.
Did he take care of it? Did he treat it at all?
He sprayed for it,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And that he put
Yeah, and-
traps down,
right.
just in case there
Okay.
were any.
And
But we didn't see any.
And I know it's
signs
not a
of them.
question, but just so you guys kind of understand, when they say inside, I think he was talking about him running underneath that lattice part underneath the house. That's
I
with the
believe
inside
in
part.
one
But
of these,
I'm going to take that off anyway, so it's kind of a moot point. We don't have to really go into it anymore now. Did you guys have any roof work done
We
to the
did.
house?
Mhm.
Okay. Then I have no further questions.
Summary?
Summary?
Based on, the additional information before the board, I am going to go ahead and ask the board not to consider 304.7 roofs and drainage, 309.1 the pest infestation, 302.5 the rodent harborage. I'm sure they can appreciate, even though tree branches might have come from a neighbor, unfortunately, you're still kind of responsible. So the 852 is still kind of on the board as far as the city is concerned. I would normally ask you guys to present a survey for the chain link fence, but based on the fact that the rest of the fencing was wood picket fencing, I think it's probably reasonable to assume that that fence doesn't belong to them. And I think in the interest of just making it a little easier, I'll ask the
board not to consider 36.03. We can deal with it. I'll deal with the property on the other, owner on the other side, and we'll go from there. So that one will also be off. So in summary, 8-40, 9-1, 101.3, and 8-52 would all be the board considering today. And I have nothing further.
Would you repeat that, please?
Sure.
8-40?
8-40, 9-1, which is adopting IPMC, IPMC 301.3 vacant structures and land, and finally 8-52, the city code nuisance prohibitions, which is the debris.
You're leaving in 8-52.
I would be leaving in 8-52 because unfortunately there is debris on the property, so.
Okay.
Can I just add another statement? We do have a yard maintenance company that comes out and takes care of our yard, and I would assume that all the branches would have been taken care of if they, to me, it was late, because the pile is nice and neat. Two different piles, and it's closest to the neighbor who keeps complaining, it's closest to his property. So with the yard maintenance company, I think that would have been taken care of if it was an ongoing, it would have.
And can you give us an idea of how long you need in order to, for the items that are still
The items as far as the
violation?
yard debris, we can
Can-
take care of
We could
that.
take care of that
We
now.
can take.
The
Yes,
only
we don't
thing we
even need-
can't take care of until we get it situated with the Historical Society is the shed. So we're waiting for a response from them to tell us what we need to do with the information that we have from our contractor.
Time-wise, how much time do you need?
Well, that's up
Well,
to them.
We go before the board on Monday. But we're now having issues with the contractor because the neighbor has gotten,
Okay, that's fine with me.
so now they're not returning our phone. I just want to put that on the record that we're having nothing but problems with the neighbor. And in order for us to take care of things, we need to stop getting him to meddle. He's even gone to other neighbors, angry that they're even. So I don't know what his beef is, but
Yeah, you'll
Yeah.
receive more complaints, I'm sure.
You need 30 days, 60 days, 90 days?
Mr. Chairman, just for what it might help, HPB is Monday. And that's, their next HPB meeting is Monday. I know the city's put together some recommendations. I can't talk about them now, but I think they're all set as far as the demolition or remodeling goes based on what the board says. So if that makes it any easier, we should probably have an answer within about a week as far as that goes.
respond to that. With the demolition, I know we have an estimate of around 3,000, which financially, that's just a little bit hard. If the board won't allow us to do that and we have to repair it, originally this construction company had told us verbally to just redo the shed because they would have to do the foundation over, the shed never had windows, they're requiring windows, they're requiring a door, and almost all the wood.
Which defeats the purpose of Historical Society.
So, I mean, I know there was a few people on the board that wanted to deny allowing us to demolish it, and with that, I don't know what, pending that, I don't know what your decision, I'd say at least 60 days.
Thank you. We're going to close the public portion of this case, and I will entertain a motion.
Okay. Help me if I've got the wrong numbers down. I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violation, sections 8-40, 8-52, 9.1 IPMC, and under that 301.3 and 304.7.
Nope.
No.
No,
That's it.
withdraw that part.
Can I
Of
get
the
a
Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondent was in violation thereof.
Second.
Thank you. Bobby, roll call?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So, Officer Gasson, do you have any ideas or recommendations of timeframes and such?
Based on the testimony, 60 days is reasonable. We seem to had a little bit of an issue. I've had 3 prior cases out there since 2017 just dealing with the yard and stuff. They contend they have a lawn maintenance company, so we'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that one, and I'll say $25 a day with this one as well. So 60 days and $25 a day would be the city's recommendation.
I
This
move that the
time- yeah.
I move that the respondent shall have until March 31st to bring the property into compliance with code sections 8-40, 8-52, and IPMC 9-1, 301.3, or suffer a fine of $25 per day for each day thereafter the respondents remain in violation of said code section.
Second.
Bobby, please. Roll call.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Tallier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMossis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
No.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1.
I'll go ahead and summarize then. So, the 3 of you have been found in violation of the mentioned code sections. You've been given until March 31st, 2019 to bring the property into compliance. Should you fail to bring the property into compliance by that date, you'll be fined $25 a day until compliance has been met. An order will be entered. You'll get it in the mail within about 10 days. You have any questions?
No, but it's no. About
We're done with the
whether-
hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll go to number 3 on your agenda items. (18-80000479) 650 East Tarpon Avenue, A&N Holding LLC.
Was she sworn in?
Were you sworn in when you got here today?
I
Okay, can you tell us your name, please?
Helen Antonopoulos.
And how are you related to the property A&N Holding Company?
I am part owner.
Okay, thank you. You received some documents today. You have any objections to them being received into evidence?
It's not on LoopNet. It's not advertised on LoopNet anymore. And I have,
I'm looking for legal objections such as it's hearsay, it's irrelevant,
No,
those
it's
types of legal
relevant. It's
arguments.
relevant.
Do you have any legal arguments? You'll be able to respond to them, obviously. No?
I don't have any objection.
Okay.
Or
All right.
Officer Gasson?
Thank you, Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department Code Enforcement Case before the Board 18-80000479. The listed property address 650 East Tarpon Avenue. Property owners listed as A&N Holdings LLC. For the Board's information, this is a rehearing of a case that this Board's already heard last year. So, moving forward with that, Exhibit number 1 going before the Board are all the photographs to include the inspections. Exhibit number 2 are all my notices to include notice of violation and notice of hearings. And the administrative documents, case summary, property appraiser, and tax collector records, and any officer emails are exhibit number 3. And exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All the photographs and exhibits that were given to the violator, exact copies, what's presented to this board. All my notice of violations and notice of hearings are sent via certified return receipt as well as first-class mail. All notices are mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. Mr. Chairman, please accept all these exhibits into the record as evidence.
Bobby, if you'll accept these into evidence, please.
Yes, sir.
As I stated previously, this is a rehearing of a code board case from last year in 2018. And unfortunately I have a staple right through the middle of the date, so. The initial violation came in on July 9th of 2018. What it started out as, we got a complaint about it being used as a short-term rental via like an Airbnb type website. The property, the way it's zoned, is not allowed. Basically, if the property owner goes with short-term tourist rental, she must complete application with planning and zoning for conditional use and get approval of a site plan. We've been going back and forth with this for a significant period of time, up to and including, I know, I've been to TRC, to the Technical Review Committee, with the owners about the property. So we mailed a notice of violation back in July 9th, and then I conducted a reinspection on September 14th. Basically, the application to change the permitted use had not been changed at that point in time back in September. An amended notice of violation and notice of hearing were mailed certified in first class. They were returned signed by the registered agent. On September 29th, I posted the property. That was for the first code board back in October. So on October 3rd, we had conversations with the property owner. She decided to submit her changes to use as a multifamily, where the conditional use isn't required. She needs to submit a site survey and floor plans to planning and zoning and get building permits and fire inspection before she's placed into compliance. On October 10th, the permits had not been obtained to make the necessary changes and move forward. We did have the code board hearing on October 11th. At that point in time, she was found in violations of certain codes. On September 8th, there was another code board hearing. She requested a rehearing, and it was granted.
That was November 8th?
I'm sorry, November 8th. And the rehearing was granted, and we're having it now. December 29th, I posted the property and completed the affidavit of posting. I did conduct a reinspection on the property yesterday, and it appears that the property is still being rented out. I saw a couple of vehicles there, so it's not vacant, so it's still in use. The zoning hasn't changed. There's been no other applications with the city.
There has or has not?
Has not.
It's not.
So what's before the board at this time is a violation of City Code 25.808, which deals with the residential office district and the allowed uses and permitted uses in the zoning code. 209.00, which is applying for a conditional use based on her zoning. She'd have to apply for a conditional use, which hasn't been done. And then 127.02 is the applicability of those zoning issues. Submitting a site plan under 210.00, because she wants to make a conditional use change, she has to submit a site plan showing what changes will be made to the structure. There's certain requirements, potentially fire sprinkler systems, exits, walls, those kind of things. And then finally, 6-1 was added for 2018 and the International Property Maintenance Code and the Building Code, because part of that falls underneath of the Building Code. So that's all I have before the board at this time. As far as it's still being listed for rental on any of the short-term rental sites, it kind of doesn't matter because the property's still being lived in. It's still being lived in outside of its permitted use, and none of the other conditional uses have been applied for. So if Airbnb doesn't list it, it doesn't change the fact that it's currently being used outside of its usage for the zoning. Mm-hmm. So that's all the city has at this point.
Does the board have any questions for Officer Gass?
Has anything changed since we originally heard this case?
Very little. I know at one point in time she was attempting to sell it, and that sale fell through. And as I stated, we went to TRC, the Technical Review Committee. I believe she brought an architect with her, presented some plans, but then it never went any farther than that. And maybe she can add, I don't think there's any other significant changes. So basically, it still sits as it did back in July. It's still being rented. It's still violating its usage and its zoning, because none of that has changed.
Do you have any questions for Officer Gasson?
No, I don't have any questions because he's correct on everything. I was going to partner with Mr. Condos.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
I was going to partner with Mr. Condos. That's why we started the process, and I went to the meeting, TLC meeting, and we went to Mr. Hoffman's office, and we had the site plan, the floor plan and everything, the parking plan. I have all that, and Mr. Condos paid for that. But then I saw that it was too much money to do, like turn it into a boarding house, etc. And in talking with Mr. Condos, we said, why don't you buy it? I said, And he says, okay. Then he gave me an offer. I had some buyers, it fell through. Then Mr. Condos has made me an offer now. And we were sort of going back and forth about the offer. I'd like to submit, there's 2 offers here to show you. I just want to vacate everything. I told there's 2 people in there, 2 tenants, and I told them they need to leave, whether the sale goes through or not. I'm going to relist it if it doesn't go through, and it's just going to be vacant downstairs, and nobody's going to be living there. If I can live there, let me know. If not, I will move out too till it sells. And that's why all the back and forth. I'd like to submit the 2 offers. It's just waiting for my signatures, but I'm
You need to
afraid.
speak into the microphone.
Yeah,
please.
it's waiting for my signatures, but I'm afraid to sign it because they put in an addendum, and I'm going through the addendum.
When do we get?
You understand if you submit that into evidence, you're not going to get it back, correct?
I have a copy of it. It's an offer. It's the offers, the for sale offers. Yeah.
I have no objection.
Okay.
Does the board have any questions for the respondent?
So since the last time we met, have still maintained those tenants in an unsafe.
It's 2 tenants. I don't. Whoever comes, I'm afraid. I tell them I don't rent. I've told them that whoever comes to rent, I tell them I don't rent. There is 2 tenants in there, and I told them they need to move out.
When was that?
I told them like when the offer started, like last month, and then it didn't fall through. And I go, okay, look, it's the finances that are driving me to stall. We were going to close on the 30th of December, so it would have been clear. It states it clearly on the offer. So we're just going back and forth, and I will get everybody evicted. I've told them this, and they're waiting for it, And I just told them, like, either way now, I'm not going to get into any trouble. I don't want that, and...
Question.
Yeah, how long have those tenants been in that residence?
I'm sorry?
How long have the tenants been in the residence?
I don't remember the exact date. I believe one is almost 8 months in there, or it could be not a year. It's not a year.
So essentially, every day that those tenants have been in this residence has been without permission to be there or legal right for them to be in this. Is that correct?
In violation of the city code, yes.
Yes.
I didn't hear that.
Need to hear that. So
I
every
did.
day that they've been there since the day they moved in,
Yeah.
they've been in violation.
Yes, you told me
No,
that last
and-
time.
And
Yeah.
technically, you were told that the last time, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I was just, my problem was financial, and I was going through, because Mr. Condos is in construction, we were going to partner together, and I just, it's the financings, it's the money issue.
Do you have any questions for the respondent, Officer Gaston?
No, I do not.
Thank you. I'll close the public portion of this case, and I will entertain a motion.
I move based on testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violation, Section City Code 6-1, 209.00, 25.08, 127.02, and 210.00 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondent was in violation thereof.
Second.
Bobby, if you'll get a roll call.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Do you have any
Recommendation?
from an
One of the biggest issues with this property is it's unsafe. That was deemed that way by the fire marshal. And that's one of the biggest problems. Can't hear me? One of the biggest issues with the property is deemed unsafe by the fire marshal. So we had a hearing last year where one of the recommendations was to evict the tenants, and then technically she'd be in compliance with an empty building. She continued to rent it and drawing profits from that for that period of time in an unsafe building. This is a little different than not mowing your grass or something. For that reason, I would say 30 days and $250 a day, because at some point, the people need to be out of the unsafe structure. And I know that's the most the city can do at this point, but that would be the city's recommendation to expedite the process. Even 30 days is probably, but it takes a period of time to actually legally evict people. It can be done in 21 days.
Yep. Thank you. Close this portion of the meeting and request and ask for a motion.
I move that the respondent shall have until February 15th to bring the property into compliance with code sections 6-1, 209.00, 25.08, 127.02, and 210.00, or suffer a fine of $250 per day for each day thereafter that the respondents remain in violation of said code sections.
Second.
Bobby, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Tallier?
Yeah.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Morris? Yeah. Okay, so you've been found in violation again. You've been given until February 15th, 2019 to bring the property in compliance, or you'll suffer a $250 a day fine. You'll receive a written order within 10 days. If you don't understand what you need to do to come into compliance, and contact Officer Gasson after the meeting. All right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Next on the agenda is number 17. Bobby.
I need the respondents' exhibits, please.
Yeah, so when you get them, I'm going to pass the respondents' exhibits. There are two of them. I'm going to pass them down and make sure that we mark them different than the city's.
Yes, sir.
Agenda item number 17 is now the one we're looking at. It's a repeat violator. In violation from 11/15 to 1/9/2019, 56 days. It's 18-800000919 510 Triplet Street, Charles Burrows.
So, Mr. Burrows, you've received some documentation today. It's in front of you in that envelope. Do you have any objections to it being received into evidence?
Do you have any objections to it being received in evidence? No.
Okay.
Do you have any objection to this being received in evidence?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Officer Gasson?
Thank you. This is case number 18-800000919. The property address is 510 Triplet Street. The property owner is Charles Burrows Sr. There's a couple aspects to this. There's some new violations, and then there's repeat violator violations. The first repeat violation stems from, it goes from November 15th of 2018 until January 9th of 2019 for a total of 56 days. That was a repeat violator for case number 18-800000099, which was 8-40 and 8-52 of the city code. The code board heard that case on March 8th of 2018, which was a repeat violator case, and issued a $25 a day per fine. Those fines have still been accumulating since February 22nd of 2018. We're at approximately $8,000 for those fines. It's also a repeat violator for case number 17-800000486. Again, violations of City Code 8-40, 8-52, and 6-1. That was a code board case on October 12th of 2017. Its deadline was December 12th of 2017, or pay a fine of $25 per day. Those fines are still currently accruing from December 13th of 2017, and they stopped accruing on March 29th of 2018 for a total of approximately $2,800. Those fines are still unpaid. So moving forward with this case, that's the back history that got us all the repeat violators to where we're at now. Exhibit number 1 going before the board are all the photographs. Exhibit number 2 are all the notices, to include the notice of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 are administrative documents, to include the case summary, property appraiser, and tax collector records, and any associated emails. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign, and exhibit number 5 is the affidavit of prosecution costs. All my photographs and exhibits that were given to the violator are exact copies of what was presented to this board. All notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. All notice of violations and notice of hearing are sent, return receipt requested, as well as first-class mail. And Mr. Chairman, please accept all exhibits into the record as evidence.
Thank you. Bobby, would you please?
Yes, sir.
Moving forward, the case started November 15th of 2018. This is an interesting lot. It's a rather large lot. In normal cases, it would look like it would almost be like 4 parcels, but it basically runs from Safford Avenue. Athens is the north border over to Triplet, and it has a large vacant lot. This board had previously heard a case on a structure that was there that had been since demolished. And then there's also, I believe it's a duplex on the southern end of that parcel. So it's a very, very large parcel. At the time, the lot was overgrown, particularly along the east side. There were Brazilian pepper trees on the property, trash and debris on the lot. There were trash cans in public view. That was related to the residential area on the southwest side. The trees were not being trimmed to provide sidewalk and street clearance. That was along the eastern side, which is along Safford, across the street from the trail, the Pinellas Trail. There were a pile of cinder blocks. There was an old washing machine and some other furniture on the property. Also at the time, there was a vehicle on the south side of the property that had expired tags. That vehicle has since been removed. On November 16th of 2018, the notice of violation, the notice of hearing, the repeat violator notice of hearing were all mailed. They were returned unclaimed, although Mr. Burrows has been into the office at least once to discuss the violations and how to come into compliance. I posted the property on December 29th, signed the affidavit the same date. I did conduct a reinspection yesterday and found the property to be in compliance of all the violations. What he is before the board as a repeat violator is 8-40 and 8-52 for a total of 56 days. As far as the other violations go, I'm not before the board to try to establish them. So we can just simply consider the repeat violator aspect of the case.
Mr. Burrows, do you have any questions of Officer Gasson?
Do you have any questions?
Any question?
Yes, for the officer. Technically, your everything is still in compliance, is what he said.
I can't hear you.
Everything is still in compliance as of yesterday, is what he said. Do you have any questions for Officer Gasson?
Any questions? I just want to know if the place is satisfactory, that's all.
It is. The property is satisfactory as of right now. It's all in compliance, Mr. Burrows. You're all good right now.
It's the reason why I want to know because Qantas took my money, which is how much? $15,100 he took. He never finished the job. He never finished the job. I hire another man. He worked one day. He never came back. I hired 3 boys. They worked a half a day. They wanted the money. I paid them. They never came back. I do all the rest myself and my wife and a daughter. I'm doing it myself because they're taking my money and then doing what they're supposed to do.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows.
I don't have any questions.
Questions
I don't have a
for
summary
Mr.
either.
Burrows?
I ain't supposed to be doing it because I'm 90 years old. I'm 90.
I remember.
And I got strength enough to do it. So, and the trouble about it, I get no help. from the city. No help at all. Why? Jealousy. Jealousy.
Okay,
Mr.
Burrows.
Brown
Mr.
from
Burrows.
Greensboro Drive.
Mr. Burrows, if you could,
Can you speak a little louder, just so he can hear you, please?
Speak into the microphone.
Could I just say this? Mr. Brown from Greensboro Drive. I came here in 1953 and asked him for a little help. The help he gave me was Mr. Gauge from Gauge Lumber, Mr. Boyette, contractor, and Mr. Carly Court from Arkansas. That's the help he gave me. Don't tell us nothing. You want help? We going to help you.
Mr. Burrows,
We
I'm going
was
to close
for
the public aspect
men.
of this. Mr. Burrows, Mr. Burrows,
And they give me everything I got today.
I'm going to close the public portion of this
52
case.
lots were the first thing they give me, from Manga Circle to where the clinic is. 52 lots without a dime.
Can you tell them we're
And
moving
4
on, please? Mr.
bank
Burrows,
loans, First Federal.
So he has a hearing problem and he can't hear you trying to speak.
And I did it
could you
all
tell
by
him that,
myself. All the
that
building.
we're okay?
He's trying to speak to you.
We need to move on, Mr. Burrows.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I want to close the public portion of this and ask for a motion.
Can't do it.
Somebody give me a motion as it relates to, it's just the-
This is a repeat violation of sections 8-40 and 8-52. There's also an affidavit of prosecution cost of $106 that has been submitted.
okay. Go to repeat.
Wow, we've got a lot of shy board members today.
That's the day. That's the day. It's cold. You know, we all want to go to bed. Is that
That's in compliance with fine.
That's correct. It is in compliance. It's a repeat violation in compliance with fines. Affidavit of prosecution costs.
all right? We're on it.
Okay. I'll go get my cot.
Yeah. How about it, Bruce? Look at that. He has to open it.
Oh, you got
Does he like to table it?
No. It's, all the evidence has been received. Action needs to be taken.
That page right there. Top part.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead if you want.
I move that based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law, that the respondent was in violation of sections 8-40 and 8-52 of the Tarpon Springs City Code from the date I'm not clear on exactly.
It's on your agenda,
Right in the top.
right at the very top.
Okay. 11/15/2018 to present,
To January 9th.
January 9th, and a fine of, until completion date, okay. The fine, is there a fine?
The
You need to decide that. $0 to $500 a day.
I sign that, $25 a day. No.
You can finish your motion. They can discuss it.
Days, or a fine of,
Do what you think is best.
okay, I think $25 a day.
Good.
For a fine of,
You don't need to do the math. It's $25 a day for 56
in addition, I
days.
move the city be awarded $106 for the cost it incurred in prosecuting this case.
Add the number of days. You missed the number of days, just add the number of days.
Number of days,
56 days.
56 days. Sorry.
Got it.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Did you hear?
Is it Ms. Dabbs? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Ms.
Okay, Ms. Dabbs seconded it. Thank you.
Could we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMossis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
No.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
No.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
Does the motion carry?
Yes.
5-2. Carries.
I'll go ahead and summarize. So, Mr. Burrows, you've been found in violation, repeat violation, Code Sections 8-40 and 8-52. The board has assessed a fine of $25 a day for 56 days. They've also assessed prosecution costs of $106. You'll receive an order in the mail within about 10 days reflecting those dollar amounts and those number of days. If you don't understand what has happened today, you can contact the Code Enforcement Office after today's meeting for further information.
Thank you.
We can move on to the next case.
We need to move on to the next case.
Yep.
Next agenda item is number 1.
Finish?
Yeah.
17-800000746, 601 South Gross Avenue, Angela Saunders. Number 1.
Are you Ms. Saunders?
Yes.
Okay. You've received the documents that the code enforcement officer has supplied you. Do you have any objections to them being received into evidence?
No.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Hoffman, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Ed Hoffman, Hoffman Architects, 29 West Orange Street. I have Miss Angela Saunders here with us. She is the owner of the property. And behind me is Mary Kiss. She's a disaster relief worker with the United Methodist Church. That's total. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Officer Gasson?
Officer Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department Code Enforcement. The case before the board is case number 17-800000746. The address is 601 South Gross Avenue. The property owner's listed owner is Angela Saunders. Going before the board is exhibit number 1 are all the photographs that were taken of the property. Exhibit number 2 are all the notices to include the notice of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3, administrative documents, case summary, property appraiser, tax collector records, and any associated emails with this case. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All the photographs and exhibits that were given to the violator are exact copies of what's being presented to the board. All my notice of violations or notice of hearing are sent both return receipt requested as well as first-class mail. All notices are mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. Mr. Chairman, please accept all these items into the record as evidence.
Bobby, will you accept these items for us, please?
Yes, sir.
Starting off, this case started back in February, but I want to let the board know we've had a lot of contact with the property owner, Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Hoffman's group, and a myriad of other people related to this case. Back in February of 2018, it was a 2017 case, but I had to get the building department involved and stuff, and that's why it didn't end up getting initially inspected until February. The property had been vacant. We inspected it, found numerous violations. There was trash and debris on the south side of the building. The fence on the property is in poor condition. The building department observed a sagging section in the front of it, which was the porch, and some of the posts were leaning. There was damage to the soffits. There was a fire inside, I believe, the southern half of the duplex, and there was some significant smoke damage. The building inspectors and the fire inspector noted some smoke damage that appeared it would have traveled through the attic space, even to the north side, which was the non-affected unit, I believe. The property, as I stated, the property suffered a fire many years ago, and it hadn't been restored as of yet. There were exposed electrical outlets in the front of the house. At the time, it was Keith Mead and Robert Simone from the building department who insisted in the inspection, and they gave me specific information about violations of the code and what they saw from a building aspect. On February 23rd of 2018, the notice of violation was mailed. It was returned to us. It was vacated. Basically, nothing happened with it. On March 23rd of 2018, there was a roofing permit pulled for the property, but I do not believe anything went further with that other than the permit being pulled. April 11th, I conducted a reinspection and there was no change. We fast forward quite a few months because we had conversations about things being done, so on and so forth, to November 16th, at which point a notice of hearing was mailed. It was returned to our office unclaimed. On December 21st, we received an email and sent an email to Mr. Hoffman, his group, basically kind of summarizing the case. We're advising him the city's still going to bring the case to Code Board. I think at this juncture it would be best to have a definitive time frame for completion. That's part of the reason why I'm bringing this case before. As you can appreciate, we're almost a year into this case. The structure's not safe. I know Mr. Hoffman's going to present some alternative solutions for the property and probably the explanation of why this has taken so long. I'm presenting the case to the board to hope that we can at least narrow down that time frame and get to a point. I've explained to him part of it is if the building's demolished, the code case is basically done, and they can take all the time in the world they want to rebuild the property. Even the demolition doesn't necessarily include removal of the foundation, which I know in some cases causes issues to architects, and it also causes issues to the city as far as zoning, variances, lot sizes, and things like that. And I think Mr. Hoffman is probably going to explain some of those intricacies to this property to the board, which I'm not even going to begin to try to explain. So the long and short of that is we've gone back and forth for a long period of time about getting something done with this property. Nobody is living in it, which is a good thing, but it does stand vacant. Ms. Saunders has managed to do a pretty good job of keeping anybody out of there, so it's not, other than the unsafe aspect of the structure, become a nuisance. She's kept it in fairly good condition as far as the exterior goes, but there's something that needs to be done with that building, and we need to kind of get a definitive time frame on it, basically get moving along with it. So, with that being said, I posted the property on January 9th, I posted the property previously in December. I conducted another reinspection, and it's still basically the same as it has been for the last year. The City Code 6-1, which is adopting the older building code because we had a change in 2018 to 6-1 and adopted a new building code. 8-40, which is the duty to maintain private property. 8-52, nuisance prohibitions, basically keeping some of the debris and everything cleaned up off the property. And the fences, walls, and hedges. And I'd probably have to specifically ask Ms. Saunders about the fence in the back. I wasn't able to see it, but I believe there were still some sections missing from that wooden fence on the east side of it. So when I got to that opportunity, I was going to ask her about the fence, and that would determine where we went from there with the fence. So basically, that's all I have at this point in time.
The board have any questions for Officer Gasson? Okay. Ms. Saunders, do you have any questions for Officer Gasson? Okay. Go ahead and make your case.
Okay, if I will, I'll speak first. Ms. Kiss may join in with this.
Please speak into the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I put this a little closer. Does that make sound a little better?
Sound a little louder.
It's a little louder. I'll try to speak more clearly as well. I was saying that I will be doing the first introductions and lay out a program here, and then Ms. Sanders will plead her case, more or less, and then Ms. Kiss will be back up and filling in blanks for me, because she's actually been more involved in this for more time than I have. As you know, that case history that we've been given, Exhibit 3, is pretty impressive. It's pretty thick. There's a lot of, as Officer Casson says, there's been a lot of back and forth. What I want to talk about to begin with, though, is that this thing has been going along a long time, and the genesis of it is a hardship on Ms. Sanders that is being caused by others than herself. It's not something that she's gone into. It's not like she's a slumlord or anything else being irresponsible. This is a case, it's really about flooding. It's about flooding beyond her control, and then getting hung up in a series of catch-22 issues, where one thing, you can't do one thing without the other, and different agencies. This has been a very complex thing. I'm going to give you just a brief outline of some of the things that have happened. That Ms. Sanders grew up in the house. Her father built it, her grandfather, and so she has sentimental connections to it. She was also living there for quite some time with her 2 children. In 2010, the property across the street, they filled in the wetland there so that they could build on it as a construction site. That's when the first time she started noticing that they were getting water in their yard and starting to have flooding issues. In 2011, the apartments that are on the south of the property up the hill is a fairly large complex. And when that was under construction, there was very significant flooding. There was flooding to the point that it ended up being knee deep, particularly when the tropical storm, technically, Tropical Storm Debbie came through. The water was knee deep in her house. So, and then the city did a report. Mr. Robertson, along with from the city and American Engineering, I believe it was, who is a consultant to the city, did an analysis of it, and it's fairly thorough. But it's a summary that the upstream, up the hill, problems of the water coming off of these apartments is a significant contributor to the problem that Ms. Sanders is dealing with, because she's at the bottom of the hill, unfortunately. So they are not actually containing the water that they need to, is what it seems to be. I have not done an engineering analysis myself at all, but that seems to be the summary of their report. Unfortunately, in 2013, Ms. Sanders lost both of her children separately, one in June and one in December. That's been a extreme hardship, and so there's been some time passed by. She had the property repaired from the Debbie storm, but then came Hurricane Irma, and then that ended up taking off, making a big mess out of her roof and making the place getting unlivable, and that's when she moved out. So from there, we end up with, what to do about this, because you have a piece of property that needs all these repairs, and I just as a layperson, I would agree with Ms. Casson. As an architect, I agree with a lot of what Mr. Casson says in terms of it needing a lot of repairs. The problem is do you repair something? You have a 50% rule issue going on with FEMA that you can only fix 50% without complying. So without complying to the FEMA rules, bringing the whole thing up to code, which in her case, because the property is low, it needs to be brought up about 6 feet, I believe. I don't remember the exact number. Anyway, so they've been dealing with money issues, the hardship of that. But she's been establishing loans. As you know, you heard that she gave, $3,000 to Mr. Contos to do the roof, which he, of course, was pointed out, he pulled a permit earlier. The question arises, though, as to how much money do you want to spend on a building, your building, which is also part of your livelihood because you rent out the other side of the duplex because she was living there. How much do you spend on a project that you know that the next time it gets a significant rain, you're going to be in knee-deep water again, needing to, rebuild the whole thing. So ideally, you want to try to make the FEMA people happy and do what's reasonable, even though it's a hardship not caused by you, to bring it up to FEMA rules and bring the house up out of the flood area so that she won't have to be dealing with that again. She hired us in, there's a lot of back and forth with FEMA and all that, and FEMA money, disaster relief money and that kind of a thing, but resulting from the hurricane. But we were hired in August to look as architects, Hoffman Architects, to look at bringing the house, raising the house. And there was a lot of discussion about how to do that. There's some, what was finally decided is that we would want to build a new duplex. On top of the existing structure, basically take her same square footage and elevate it to the, so it's out of the floodplain with steps up to it and that kind of a thing. So then the first thought, and I'd spoken to Ms. Gatson about this, is that we would just demolish the whole thing, have that problem go away, and then start our construction process. Well, process is a operative word here because there are so many parts and pieces to this because as it turns out, and we were dealing with setback issues because the structure was no longer going to comply with setbacks. So then we found that, okay, we can make a jog in it and deal with the setback issue, and we're okay. But then in October, it was pointed out to us that even though we could deal with the setbacks, we were grandfathered with the setbacks, that she simply could not build raise the building and build the duplex because of the size of lot. You're not allowed to. The new code says you can't build a duplex on that lot. So here she is. She has a house. She simply wants to do the right thing with FEMA, bring it up to the proper elevation, but now she can't do it at all. So she's in this impossible situation. So zoning, we spent time, again, this is a process that goes back and forth between different agencies and different staff in the city, between the building department as well as planning and zoning. Heather from zoning finally made a final determination that it was going to be, that there was no way for the code to allow her to build this duplex on this property. Her only alternative is to add more additional property. Well, this was a problem. It's with the adjacent owner to the east. But more recently, she was able to work out a deal for purchasing 20 feet on the east side of the property, and that would be enough to bring her into compliance. So with being able to build the structure, a duplex on the proper sized property. So where we are now is that she has a what is it? Yeah, well, there's the summary of probation, but the probate, not probation, probate. Yeah. But you have the letter from the owner to sell it to you, the commitment.
Oh, yes, no.
Yeah, notarized letter from the owner saying that she will sell it, and that is basically a squared away deal, but there's a will involved, and that goes through probate that should have been done any time. So we're dealing with that, and hopefully that's going to happen in the next few days, if not a week. So supposedly it should be a very simple case, so that she will take ownership of that extra 20 feet that allows us to go ahead and complete the design and drawings of what we need to do for the building permit. So where we go from here is that's the history and what I would refer to as hardship history. So from here, in terms of what we would like to take place, what should take place, and our request from this board is that through January, I've already been trying, although I'm not a contractor, I've been trying to help Ms. Sanders in that trying to find a demolition. I've talked to 3 different demolition companies, and everybody's all excited because they have a guy in a bulldozer and a dump truck to demolish things. In this case, we are asking them to demolish it, do a partial demolition, where we remove everything from the building except for the walls, the masonry walls. We take out all the interior walls, all the plumbing, blah, 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 because none of that complies with the new FEMA rule, okay? So we're trying to bring it into compliance. We're trying to, rather than, I totally understand Ms. Gadsden's point. He says that taking down everything but the slab would be appropriate and make the problem go away. But we need to, it's real hard for us for 2 reasons to do that. And that's because, one, I can show you in a moment. This is the plan we'd like to do. These are the elevations. It's a relatively straightforward, simple building, but it's elevated. And then the thing I really wanted to show you before I lose my notes. Let's go one more sheet. Oh, one more after that. That's a survey. This is the existing building here, and this is the additional 20 feet she's having to purchase. And then I come to this drawing, and I show you this because this is the existing footprint of the existing building. So the idea is that we'd be using all of the masonry walls as part of the structure. We're going to have to add to that for the second story. But we're using the existing structure, and so that doesn't make any sense at all for us to tear all of those walls down, wait 2 months while we get our building permit, and then build all new walls back. So, from an economic point, thanks. I think that is it. So whoops, somebody's gooching me. So what we're asking to do and what we're anticipating is that we're trying to get the demolition going right away. I was hoping that would have been done by the time we had this meeting, but unfortunately it hasn't. Because when they find out that we're asking for them to take off all these different pieces, it's more labor intensive, takes a bigger crew, and so anyway, but we have some other people from the disaster relief, that might be able to deal with it. So hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, certainly by the end of February, it should be taken care of, and have the roof off, have everything down to just the masonry. So, and then we anticipate we'll be doing in February, we'll be doing finishing up the architectural permit and construction documents. So in March, we should be able to be bidding and permitting. We'll do those simultaneously, trying to get our numbers together, and then hopefully by the end of March, we would have a building permit and start construction in April. That's our hopeful plan. So what we're asking for is, which I know you'll be asking me that if I didn't tell you right now. What we're asking for is when we can get this done. That's our timeline. So we're asking for two things. We're asking for a extension of the penalties until for this demo to get this done to the end of February. And then the second thing is that we're asking Officer Gasson to let us have, or you all, whoever, I'm not quite sure who our request is to, but that we let the walls remain, have everything cleaned up and cleaned out except for the masonry walls, so that we can use those masonry walls to be part of the construction permit that would be starting in April. So those are kind of the two-part things, and I presume once we get a building permit, then it's kind of a construction site, which doesn't necessarily fall along with, where there's debris on a construction site, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of what we're asking for, those two things. Angela, you like to?
Yes. I don't want to prolong time, and I'm a preacher, so please, somebody nod their head if I'm too lengthy in time. I would like to give an honor to God and thanking everybody in their respective place. I want to thank, is it Sergeant Gasson?
Huh?
Is it Sergeant Gasson?
No, I've never made it that far.
Oh,
well, that's my
I was going to say,
sergeant.
Mr. Gasson and his staff, I know Beth Hughes, they have been working with us all year. But I want you all to know that by the time they came out to work with me, I'm disabled physically, but I worked and I took out a loan before any violations came. I have owned the property since I was 19, and I'll be 47 this month. So for the last 27 years, I have been a responsible, law-abiding, and 601 South Gross Avenue is more than a duplex. It's been a ministry to my community. Yes, my two boys passed 6 months apart. So 2013, I was in a place of mourning. I didn't do anything. My brother did make sure the yard was cut, and family made sure people stayed out. But I wasn't emotionally able to do anything, not even, try to work towards getting back to my home. But in that being said, I have housed multiple people, not in just Tarpon, but throughout Pinellas County. And when I say people, teenagers. And I thank God, some of them was foster kids, some just come from troubled home. I want you all to know that, because the reason I'm fighting so hard, it would be so easy just to move on, especially after losing your only two children. But the reason I'm fighting so hard for my home is because my grandfather, which I consider my father, not only did he build this, it was built the year I was born in 72, but I guess it wasn't actually to move in until 73. So the court record says 1973. I have always, my grandfather taught me, and I've been in compliance with that, in the loving the neighbors and helping. I'm a Christian woman, so I've helped the community. There's people in my community, and I've never changed my address. I love Tarpon Springs. I come from a community where sometimes people fall between the cracks, where they don't qualify for housing, but they can't afford to pay $1,800 for rent. And those are the people that my family have helped, along with, I told you, 2009 and 2011, whoever's on the football and track team that needed help, whether their mothers were evicted or they got hurt, whatever, I've housed them. And thank God, most of them are very successful. And I would like to continue to do so. So I kind of told you my past because I have a passion. My grandfather had a dream, and he made sure that it was passed on to his second generation. And although my children are deceased, I have 4 grandchildren. I would like to keep on doing the same thing.
I'm going to jump in.
Oh, okay.
You tell us to tell you when you're gone.
Yes.
We need to focus on the case in front of us. We have to complete this in another 40 minutes, and we have like 10 more cases to go. So I think that they've heard the direction that you're asking for. Mr. Hoffman did an excellent job in explaining it. And so it's my understanding you just want some time to bring the property into compliance. Mr. Hoffman is asking for it through the end of February. And then as for what is compliance and what is not compliance, Mr. Gasson can deal with that. this board is not going to deal with what is compliance relative to the walls. So Mr. Gasson can deal with that as you move through your demolition process. So we need to move forward with the case.
Okay, well, can I ask you a question? Because he said February. I don't think he mean that the property is going to be in compliant by February.
That's exactly what he testified to.
Is that what you're saying, Mr.
Well, I'm
Huffman?
hoping that we're going to be able to.
Oh,
do
okay.
demolition.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Demolition will be.
So if you don't have any other evidence that you want to present, we're going to close the public portion of the meeting. Do you have any questions, Mr. Gasson?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. So we need to close the public portion and we need to move on.
Need a motion?
I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violation, sections 6-1, 8-40, 8-52, and 36.03 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondent was in violation thereof.
Second.
Bobby, can you do a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMossis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes. Officer Gasson, do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I believe that outside the building department or the building inspector denying just having the walls, I will put it in compliance if the fence is taken care of, and if it's removed.
It'll be gone.
Completely removed, and it's taken down to just the masonry walls, because that's initially what we talked about anyway. I would agree with that. As weird as it is, I'm on vacation until the end of February, so March 5th would be
March
an easy
5th?
date. I'd come back to work that day.
Mhm.
March 5th, and there's a lot of history with the house, and I think we're going to have a resolution if they're able to get it demolished by March 5th. Leave the walls up. He can deal with the building permits, but it'll comply this case, and then $50 a day just because of the safety aspect of it as it stands right now. And that's what the city would recommend.
Yeah, close the public portion of this case now and ask the board for a motion.
I move that the respondent shall have until March 6th to bring the property into compliance with code sections 6-1, 8-40, 8-52, and we're excluding the
36.03,
fence
the fence.
portion.
Well, you should have it removed.
He did not exclude that.
Not
Yeah, it needs to be
exclude it,
included.
leave that, okay? And 36.03, or suffer a fine of $50 a day for each day thereafter that the respondent remain in violation of said code sections.
Second.
Roll call, Bobby?
Yes. Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Yes, oh, sorry. Mr. DeMossis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
No.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes?
And Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
The motion carries 6-1.
Thank you
Right, so
very
I'm going to
much.
go ahead and summarize. Ms. Saunders, you need to bring the property into compliance by March 6, 2019. If you fail to bring the property into compliance within those 4 code sections within that period of time, you'll suffer a $50 a day fine. If you don't understand what you need to do, you can contact Officer Gasson after the meeting today. There'll be a written order that'll be provided to you. You'll receive that within about 10 days. You basically got what you requested.
Thank
Okay,
you.
all right. All right, thanks.
Very much.
We'll move to agenda number 13 now on your agenda sheet. It's a repeat violation from 12/20 to 1/9/2019, 21 days. 18-8000713, 331 North Safford Avenue, EIP Enterprises LLC.
Is there anyone here for that case?
No, Theo went and left. He left.
Okay,
Yeah, they were here.
okay.
This is a repeat violator case for 21 days as stated. It also has new codes in it, so there's 2 parts to this. The repeat violator codes are 8-40, and then there's some additional ones. Case number 18-8000713, 331 North Stafford Avenue, which is now a vacant lot, owned by EIP Enterprises LLC. Exhibit number 1 before the board are all the photographs. Exhibit number 2 are all notices to include the notice of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3, administrative documents, case summary, property appraiser, and tax collector records. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign, and exhibit number 5 is the affidavit of prosecution costs. All the notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County property appraiser and tax collector. Notice of violations and notice of hearing are sent both return receipt as well as first class. And Mr. Chairman, please accept these into the record as evidence.
We will. Bobby?
Yes, sir.
We have had significant contact with the owner. He was here. I spoke to him earlier and kind of told him what was going on in the position we're in at this point. The case started back September 5th of 2018, was conducting inspections directly next door, and I observed a number of violations on this property. Fence was broken in numerous places and in poor condition. There were multiple piles of, it turns out to be mulch, dumped on the property. There was a semi-trailer, part of a pontoon boat, and some other construction equipment stored on the lot. The lot was overgrown. There was a silt fence which had not been removed. Previously, this board heard a case. There was a building on it. The building got demolished. It was an old sponge factory, so it's now a vacant lot, but that silt fence was left up and not removed after the demolition occurred. And then there was some other trash and debris on the south side of the property. On December 21st of 2018, the notice of violation, notice of hearing, repeat violator notice of hearing were mailed, and the registered agent did sign for those. December 29th, I posted the property, and on January 10th, earlier today, I drove by. Basically, everything was in compliance except for the large piles of mulch. The fence was repaired, but in the process, he added a new fence, which is a different case. So, and he's dealing with his new fence that he added. So what's before the board today is the repeat violator aspect of 8-40 for a period of 21 days because I did give him compliance back to the 9th, only because that was the date they said they finished it, and I didn't check it until today. So 21 days for the 8-40. Then before the board right now is I'm going to take 3603 off of it because he repaired that fence. So 64.00, which deals with excavation and fill, because it's either mulch or dirt and it's going to change the elevation of that property. There's about 10 large dump truck loads on the property. The property owner says it was illegally dumped on his property, so he's now stuck dealing with it. That's why I took it off of the 852, so he wasn't being fined for it anymore. But if in fact he chooses to use it, he's going to have to submit a site plan and get a change for his conditional use to do that. So it kind of covers that base and gives him some time to take care of it, which is primarily what he needed. He understands he's a repeat violator. He was out of town. He was out of the country for most of December, so didn't get the notice. And as soon as he got the notice, he mitigated the issue right away and came into compliance. Then he basically just needed some time to deal with removing those piles of mulch, dirt, debris, whatever they are, and get him off the property. So as I stated before, the board is 64.00, 210.00, and 209, the conditional use, because if he tries to use it to store dirt, he has to have a conditional use for that property. And then I stated that we will not be considering 36.03 for the fence because it was repaired. And that's all I have at this time. And one last thing, he was previously fined $50 a day when he was a repeat violator, and he had paid his fines. So he owes nothing to the city. He does take care of his fines. So as far as the repeat violator thing, I just want to make the board aware that he did have a previous fine of $50 a day. And now that's all I have.
Anybody on the board have questions for Officer Guess?
What was the fine that was established for this time? This repeat violation was fined at $50 a day?
Well, not this one. His what made him a repeat violator, previous violation, but it was because of the structure was in very poor condition, and he got it demolished. That's what established him under 840. But unfortunately, the trash and the debris and everything else made him a repeat violator, even though they're not necessarily same, so to speak, but they fall under the same code.
Close the public portion of this case and ask the board for a motion.
And my suggestion is that we break this up into separate motions for the new violations versus the repeat violation. It would be too difficult to create a motion. So if we could treat them separately. So my understanding is that under the initial violations, it's 64.00, 210.00, 209.00 for the initial violation.
Yep. Correct.
And 8-40 is the repeat, and it was in violation from December 20th through January 9th, total of 21 days, so it'd be a separate motion.
Okay, so the first motion is new violation.
Yep.
I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violation, sections 64.00, 210.00, and 209.00 of the Code of Ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondent was in violation hereof.
Second.
Bobby, roll call?
Ms. Italia?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Thank you.
Recommendation.
Recommendations?
Yeah, after speaking with Theo, he asked for 60 days to take care of it. His fines previously had been $50, and I told him I would recommend $50 again, but he just was mainly wanting the time, and he'll get it taken care of. So the city's recommendation would be 60 days and $50 a day.
Need a motion?
I move that the respondent shall have until March 11th to bring the property into compliance with code sections 64-00, 210.00, and 209.00, or suffer a fine of $50 per day for each day thereafter the respondent remain in violation of said code sections.
Second.
Roll call, Bobby?
Ms. Italia?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yeah.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes?
Mr. Weeks?
Yeah.
Please roll.
Okay, so we need to do the
Another motion
Yeah.
in reference to.
I
the repeat
understand.
vi-
I move that based on the, oh, we need to present the case first, or that's
Already
good
been
enough?
presented.
Good enough, okay. I move that based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented in law, that EIP Enterprises LLC was in violation of section 8-40 of the Tarpon Springs Code from December 20th of 2018 to January 9th of 2019, and a fine for that number of days, plus the prosecution costs of $91.50 be awarded.
We need a dollar amount for the days. How much per day?
It was 50.
That's up to
It
you.
was his previous.
It's up to you.
Well, I have a question.
Hold on a second, we got a motion going. So right now, you need to finish your motion. So your motion is, so far, that find that it is a repeat violation of 8-40. It was in violation from December 20th to January 9th, a total of 21 days. Your motion also included awarding prosecution costs of $91.50, but we need to know the dollar amount for the days that he was in violation for the repeat. Did you want to use that $50 a day that had been on the previous case?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the motion on the table.
Second.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dematis.
All right.
I needed to do that.
Bobby?
I think that Mr. Dematis has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What the question that I wanted to raise was, had there been a fine established,
That's what I was.
that he would have had either to comply with or face a fine, was there a fine established? But,
You needed to do that in this motion. In the previous case, it was $50 a day. So this is the second time around. The reason that they tell you, the code enforcement officer tells you what he's been fined in the past, maybe give you an idea that maybe it should be a little bit more than the last time. But the recommendation from Officer Gasson was that it remain the same.
okay, so going onward, anytime there's a repeat violation where we use the same language, it's up to the person making the motion to determine what fine they feel is
Absolutely.
apropos.
Yeah,
All right, thank you very much.
Up to $500 a day. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Trask.
Anybody else want to say? Bobby, can you do a roll call, please?
Mrs. Chalier?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Creamer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Thanks for clearing that up. That was a question that I had too.
On to the next case, which is number 15 on your agenda items. Repeat violator in violation from 11/16/18 to present, 18-800000914, 608 Royal Drive, Tina Hinton.
You could just state your name, please.
Tina Hinton.
Did you receive the documents and evidence that the city is going to tender today? And if so, do you have any objections to them coming into evidence?
No,
Okay,
there's a couple discrepancies.
All right, well, you'll be able to speak to any of those when it's your opportunity to speak.
Officer Gasson?
Thank you. As I stated, this is a repeat violator case. It began November 16th of 2018 and is currently not in compliance. The repeat violator case was case number 18-800000838, which was a violation of City Ordinance 4-3. The case before the board today is 18-800000914. The property address is 608 Royal Drive, and the property owner is Tina Hinton. Exhibit number 1 going before the board are any photographs for the case. Exhibit number 2 are all my notices to include notice of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 is administrative documents to include a case summary, property appraiser and tax collector records, and any associated emails. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. And exhibit number 5 is the affidavit of prosecution costs. All the photographs and exhibits that were given to the violator are exact copies of what's being presented to this board. All my notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. And all notice of violations and notice of hearings are sent return receipt requested, as well as first-class mail. And Mr. Chairman, please accept these into the record as evidence.
Bobby, please?
Yes, sir.
Accept those into evidence.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hinton?
He's got to finish his case.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. This case started November 16th of 2018, and as I stated, I was conducting an inspection in the early morning hours, and I was clearly able to hear roosters on the property. Now understand, and I'll put a picture up of the property on the board. This is a vacant lot that is across the street from the violator's home. So let me put it up here for you guys. It's the property outlined in green right there. It does have a fence around it, and it looks like it's used generally for storage, but there's no structures on it as far as residential structures. So I go out to the property. I could hear roosters on the property. I actually have a video of it. If you really want to hear it, I can pull it up and you can play it, but roosters sound like roosters. I met with Ms. Hinton. She approached me and she advised that she had pot-bellied pigs, 3 roosters. She stated she was trying to get a permit. The land does not have a dwelling on it, and it is zoned residential. So that piece of property is zoned residential, but it does not have a dwelling on it. That becomes important because the code does have certain aspects that require there be a residential unit on the property to do certain things. So the code does not allow any farm animals on the property. It does only allow 4 hens on the property with a detached residential dwelling. I advised Ms. Hinton at that time that the fines would begin that day because she was in violation of the code. Now, specifically, the code states, have it up here. That's it, and it's probably too small for any of us to read. The long and short of it is you have to have residential property, which it is. You have to have a residential structure on the property, and you can obtain a permit from the city to have 4 hens. They have to be in a coop, you have to submit a site plan, et cetera, et cetera. Farm animals are specifically defined basically as ducks, pigs, goats, Roosters are not, they're specifically in there is not permitted. Basically, the only thing that is permitted is domestic animals, cats and dogs, parrots and fish and birds and things like that. So that's the nature of the violation. She had been before this board before for violation of that code because of the animals she had on that property. And as I stated with the roosters, she was in violation again. So on November 16th, the repeat violator notice of hearing was mailed. It was returned to us unclaimed. We've had conversations, numerous conversations with her in the office. On December 29th, I posted the property. In fact, I actually handed it to her as she was standing outside. Ms. Hinton has gone back and forth attempting to obtain a permit from the city for the chickens, but unfortunately, because there's no residential structure on it, the code simply won't allow that. I believe she's going to present some evidence to the extent that she's trying to get a variance, but that doesn't necessarily change that she was in violation starting November 16th. She's still in violation as of this date. As long as those animals are on that property, it's a violation of the city ordinance 4-3. So that's basically what's before the board at this time. I do have part of an email which was submitted that she has 5 hens on the property. She does have a pot-bellied pig. She has 2 roosters, and she has 4 ducks. And that's basically it. And as I stated, they're all considered farm animals and they're not permitted. And that's the nexus of the repeat violation that we're here for. And at this point, that's all I have.
Board have any questions for Officer Gass?
Yeah, I think I heard you say roosters aren't allowed.
Are not.
Not allowed.
Not allowed.
Specifically not allowed.
Specifically not, yeah.
And she was
okay.
being fined, you said, that day, right from the very...
Well, because she's a repeat violator from the previous case, the fines effectively began that day, although those fines have not yet been defined because this board will do that if they find her in violation.
I see.
So
there's been no
but
dollar
technically,
amount.
correct, but technically they started the day I saw the violation or observed the violation, which was November 16th, and that's what I presented to the board.
The previous violation.
Previous fine?
The previous violation was for having chickens on the property without a coop.
Chickens, but at that time there were no pigs or
I
ducks or...
wasn't aware of them, so it was for the chickens. And actually, what I saw is they were trotting down the street into that little fenced-in area. They were unique-looking chickens.
What type of a fine did she receive at that?
None. She was established. Yeah, she was just established. There was no fines because I wasn't able to go onto the property, and she wouldn't allow me to go onto the property to do the inspection. So I basically had to put it in compliance. And then when I went out a different day, roosters are pretty obvious. So at that point in time, I could tell she was in violation.
How'd you discover the pig?
She told me. And she told me about her ducks and how many roosters she had.
Yeah.
Examination.
Ms. Henson, do you have any questions for Officer Gasson?
I do not. I just want to clarify that day that we had a conversation, I did tell him I had a potbelly pig, but only one
Microphone.
potbelly pig.
Can you pull the microphone closer so us older folks can hear you? Okay.
I've only ever had one potbelly pig, and the property that I was keeping my animals, it is a vacant lot. When I bought my property, my home, it came with 2 additional vacant lots, buildable lots. I chose to fence it in and turn it into a garden area, and that's where I was keeping my animals. It's completely secure. So, in reading the notes, my animals don't run loose in the neighborhood. They do have runs inside this fenced-in area. I do let them out. My neighbor Bob has the same situation. He's got several vacant lots in front of his house, and he just likes to watch them from his kitchen window. So at that time is when Officer Gasson came down my street on another issue, and we had a heated debate. My animals are very sensitive, and they all came running. They were on Bob's property, but they heard me. I think they heard my upset in my voice, and they came running single file into their pen. I then made a request through Code Enforcement Office for a reasonable accommodation for my animals. And I was told that that wouldn't be heard. So I went ahead and made application for a zoning variance in order for me to enjoy my property. And because of my disability, I'm asking for reasonable accommodations for my animals. I've submitted all the documentation necessary with code enforcement, but then also with Pat's office, with zoning and planning department. So my understanding is that my next step is to make application for a variance request exemption, and so that's what I have done to date. So I've, aside from making applications on my hens, which was approximately 2 months ago, I just received a verbal answer that they would not be allowed at my house. The way my house is set up on my lots where my house sits, I have no grass, it's all pavers except for right in front of my front windows on either side of my house. And it just, I mean, putting a coop in front of your window, I mean, it's not, I don't even think it meets the setbacks. It's not, wouldn't pass according to their requirements. So the 2 lots that I own that I consider to be my backyard, because I consider the location of my house, if Officer Gaskin can point it out, I consider the water side to be my front yard, and then my lots to be my backyard. The lots are, I don't have any adjoining residential houses. It's completely buffered by a road or other vacant lots. But outside of that buffer area, I do have neighbors, and I have letters that I've sent to Code Enforcement Office. All of my neighbors are in support of me keeping my animals. I have not had one single complaint. I've spoke to all of my neighbors. Not one neighbor has a complaint against my animals. It's quite the opposite. So I've made a request for reasonable accommodations with code enforcement. I've put in my application for my hens, and since then I've learned that the proper way to proceed is to ask for is make application with planning and zoning, which I have done that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Just
Officer
a couple quick ones.
Okay.
When you were here and you were found established by the board in November of 2018, you recall that hearing?
I came in for the hearing thinking I would have to stay.
Uh-huh.
And I spoke to Beth and said, you know, I think I had already made my application for my hens.
Right.
So, and then I was told I didn't need to be here for
Okay.
that. So
Did
I
you,
was.
Did you get a letter from the city, a board order?
I'm sorry.
Did you get a board order, order from the city stating you were found in violation of City Code 4-3, resulting from that code board hearing? Did you get a letter from the city?
I wouldn't dispute that, but I did.
Okay.
I'm sure I did. I've gotten a lot of paperwork accumulated on this case. So.
How many chickens do you have now?
I have 5 hens.
How many roosters?
I have 1 rooster.
How many pigs?
1 pig.
How many ducks?
I have 4 ducks that I house.
Do
I
you
live
have
on the
any-
water, so.
Do you have any other animals that are not dogs, cats, or dogs or cats that you're keeping on your property?
No.
Any other thing that falls into the definition of farm animal?
No.
Just those?
Right.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Henson? No question. We're going to close the public portion of this meeting and go ahead and I'll entertain a motion.
You want, since this is a repeat violation, do you want to hear from Officer Gasson as to the dollar amount of the fine?
Sure. Sorry.
We've gone back and forth with this, and there was some issues brought up. She's gone through the permitting process, but I got this complaint from her neighbors about the farm animals, so it's a little contrary to her statement as far as that goes. So the roosters were clearly evident. Like I said, I had a video camera. I was up Royal Drive, past almost around the corner, when I used my camera and put it in video mode and recorded the roosters, whatever, I can't remember the sound they make, but making rooster sounds early in the morning. So it's obvious. I think there's a sanitary issue with the animals. They were, the first time I saw them, walking up the street. So I think there is an issue with that. And as far as the simple solution is to basically have the animals someplace else in a properly zoned area, farm or whatever the case may be. And I think that needs to be done as expeditiously as possible. And I would say she did file for a variance, so 30 days would be reasonable to do that. Well,
It's a
I'm
repeat.
sorry, it's a repeat violator. So we're already into the process because she already knew that. So I would say $50 a day would be reasonable moving forward. Sorry, I forgot it wasn't a new case.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented in law, that the respondent, Tina Hinton, was in violation of Section City Code 4-3 of the City of Tarpon Springs Code from November 16th of 2018 until January 10th of 2019.
She's still in violation.
Still in violation.
And is still in violation, and a fine of $50 per day be imposed until compliance is met. In addition, I move that the city be awarded $62 for the costs of prosecuting the case.
Second.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMassis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs? Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
And Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll move to agenda
Let me-
item number 4.
I'm just going to go ahead and summarize while we're moving to that. So, Ms. Hinton, you've been found in repeat violation of the Code Section 4-3. There's been a fine of $50 a day running from November the 16th. It will continue to run until you remove the animals from the property or otherwise come into compliance. If you don't understand what you need to do to bring the property into compliance, you can speak to Officer Gasson after the meeting. Okay?
My copy of the Board of Adjustments application, can I provide that?
No, the case is over, ma'am. They've already made their decision. Thank you.
Okay. Case number 18-800000516, 437 East Boyer Street, Ricky Taylor and John Coughlin.
kind of a heads up, I have a commission meeting at 6 o'clock in the evening, so I have to leave here in about 10 minutes.
Officer Gaston?
Thank you. Case number 18-8000516, the property address 437 East Boyer Street, Ricky Taylor and John Conklin estate are the owners. Exhibit number 1 before the board are all my photographs. Exhibit number 2 are all my notices, include the notice of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 are administrative docs that include the case summary, property appraiser and tax collector records, as well as any emails. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All the photographs and exhibits that were given to the violator are exact copies of what's being presented to the board. All the notices were mailed to property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County property appraiser and tax collector databases. All notice of violations and notice of hearing are sent, return receipt requested, as well as first class. Mr. Chairman, please accept these exhibits into the record as evidence.
We will. Bobby, accept these into evidence, please.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, do you have any questions for Officer Gaston?
He's not finished yet with his case.
Jeez, please.
Is there any
Yeah,
objection?
I need to find out whether that, do you have any objections to those documents being received in evidence?
None.
No.
Okay, so we need to let him finish, yeah.
This case started July 18th of 2018. I was conducting inspections on neighboring property, and I observed numerous violations on this property. Primarily, it was overgrown. There was a large amount of trash and debris. There were appliances dumped on the property, and there's also at least 2 accessory structures on the property, and they were in dilapidated and poor condition. On July 20th of 2018, the notice of violation was mailed. We did get a return receipt signed by the property owner. On September 27th, I conducted a reinspection because there had been a period of time where they asked for some time to take care of the issues. The sheds still need to be addressed with the building department as well as the temporary structure. There's still some piles of wood and other debris in the yard. On September 28th, 2018, sent a final notice of violation, which was also returned to our office signed. On October 19th, 2018, I conducted another reinspection. Still some minor debris around the yard and the structures are still there. It also appears that there's too many sheds on the property. And at that point in time, we sent an amended notice of violation on October 19th, specifically addressing the City Code 36.01, which is how many accessory structures you can have on a property based on its zoning and so on and so forth. On November 6th, I conducted a reinspection. The structures were still there. I did have some conversation with the city building department. They did come in initially to ask questions about the sheds. Unfortunately, it seems they left some of the details out because once I sent the building department the pictures of the sheds, they did advise that they did need to go through a permitting process for the buildings. So, and I do not believe that had ever taken place. It should be noted the property is zoned residential. I don't have right now whether it's R60, R70, or R100. And the reason why that becomes an issue is because based on the City Code 36.01, it has requirements for the maximum amount of square footage you can have for detached structures. But the maximum allowed in any of those is 300 square feet. I can actually show you an aerial image and you can see 2 of the accessory structures on there. As you can see in the pictures, there's basically 3 of them along the side. Just a rough estimate, 300 square feet is going to put you at 10 by 30. One of them appears to be at a minimum of about 12 to 14 feet, probably about 8 feet wide. Another one appears to be about a 6 by 6 or an 8 by 8 metal shed. And then there's another one that's about 8 by 10. My math puts that over 300 square feet. And as I stated, according to the code, for any one of those zoning districts, R60, R70, 70A, you have to stay under 300 square feet. The property itself is only 7,975 square feet. Part of the code says you can't have more than 25% of that. I didn't get into the math. I went strictly based on what was on there, and it appears that it is over 300 square feet. Moving forward, there's still, one of them has a tarp over it, held down by some ropes, still not in the best shape or condition. We did receive a phone call from Mr. Tyler. He explained he had some money issues and he's trying to get some things done. We explained to him that it's scheduled for the code board, and basically we explained to him that how the code board works and they can establish a final deadline as far as coming into compliance. On December 29th, I posted the property. I did conduct another inspection. The yard is cleaned up, so I took off anything related to trash or duty to maintain private property. And the only violations before the board right now are the adoption of 6-1 in the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code, IPMC 302.7, which deals with accessory structures and how to keep them intact and in good shape, and then finally 36.01, which are the accessory storage structures of the city code and having too many for what's allowed in the residential lot or the zoning lot. So that is all I have at this point in time.
Board have any questions? Dr. Officer Gass? I do. Can you tell me what 6.1 is?
What 6.1 does is it's the city code that allows us to adopt the current International Property Maintenance Code. In order for me to use that, I just have to say that I'm using the city's code that the board passed that said we could use International Property Maintenance Code. That's all.
Hi, my name is Ricky Taylor.
Ricky, at
Hi.
this point, can you just ask questions?
Yeah. When you were observing the larger accessory structure with the tarp over the top, did I explain to you that that was a canopy?
I don't recall. You may have.
Okay, because the conversation you were talking about was, I went to the city and explained to them I had a canopy in the backyard with pieces of fence leaned up against the side, which you can see if you look at the picture. And I was told that that is a tent, no permit required. I can erect that in the backyard and leave it for as long as I want. That was what I was explained. And now we do have a 10 by 20 shed next to it.
Excuse me. Let me take over. I'm Stephen Taylor. I'm part owner and representative of John Conklin's estate. The sheds are there. He's correct.
Hold on a second. We're going to do one person at a time.
Let me just give me a
We're going to do one person testifying at a
Second,
time.
let me
We're not
just
going to
give-
rock
give me a
back and
second,
forth.
then. And we're brothers, and we live together, so that should explain that. But we have a canopy in the backyard. It's a temporary structure I put up after the hurricane. I got tools and stuff sitting in there. I just want to keep them out of the rain. I was told by the city I could put that up anytime I want, anywhere on the yard, and leave it as long as I want. Okay? It's a 10 by 20 canopy, and I put pieces of stockade fence leaning against the side, and I tied them together with rope. I can take the whole thing down in 1 hour. It's a temporary structure. It's not a permanent structure. It's just a canopy. The blue is the top. That's the top of the canopy. If you look real close on the corner, in the closest corner, you can see the metal bar that goes up that holds it up. It's just a canopy tent. So it looks deceptively like a big building with a tarp covering a damaged roof. I may not have mentioned it. That's why I wanted to say, did I mention that to the inspector at the time? I might not have. But it deceptively looks like a building, but it's not. It's a canopy tent. That's the top. And I just pulled it over the top of the fence pieces that are leaning against the side. That's it. So.
Okay, thank you.
And I was told by the city, and they said they sent him an email saying that that was perfectly legal. But they hadn't seen pictures of it that made it look deceptively like it's a building. Those pieces I want to put along the back of the property at some point. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, my name is Stephen Taylor. I represent John Conklin's estate.
You need to pull it in front of you so we can hear
I
you.
represent John Conklin's estate, and also I'm part owner of the home. Let me set the scenario a little bit, because that picture isn't how we live. That's the last appliances going that the hurricane tore our roof apart. Tore the southeast corner, took completely out of the 4 panels that were there, and then on the east side, it tore 4 more out. The power lines hit the roof, electrocuted all of our stuff in there, put thousands of gallons of water. The second shed, which you can't see beside my truck, that was there because it was holding tools. We had to buy tools. The only way we could attempt to do this is our great-grandfather's home. It was a sponge diver from Mykonos that came here, so we were restoring it. The first storm, Debbie lifted the metal up, dumped a bunch of water in, ruined floors, ceilings, and everything. We were just getting by that when Irma come, and she totally destroyed the home. The back of the home, as Mr. Gaskin will tell you, looks nothing like the front. It's very nice and neat up front with the vinyl and everything in place. That storm tore the back of our house out. So I did add the other structure, the two sheds together. You can only see the front one on this picture, and there's a white one in the back, and that white one in the back is only there to hold materials. There's actually about $6,000 worth of brand new air conditioning equipment that had been in the house a couple months when Irma came along. So I know that structure. I want it to go. And I've got all the metal for the new roof for the front one. So in order for us to do this work, we have to stack materials and put them somewhere. And so we stored it as neat as we could, but both of us being disabled vets, and our finances only allows us to do so much. I have pictures in my phone that'll show you the tools that we have bought and where they sit in there for the construction of this home to redo it. If you look at you Google the picture of the home, that you'll get up on Google and look at the front now, which I don't have a picture of because I didn't think he did, but even the roof alone that we've put together pieces at a time and did it ourselves. Had to pull 24-foot panels up there, and we're disabled. But we've done this, and we're steadily moving forward. We just need time. I don't want that backyard to be like that. That mess that you see on that first picture, and Mr. Gaskin will tell you, it never was there again. It was the point of piling everything up, getting people to help load it and get it off.
That was an unhappy circumstance. So at that point, when he came
it
along,
never looks like that. Never looks like that.
At this point, can you tell me how much time you need?
6 months, at least, a minimum. We got taxes due in 3, and for us to finish the back of the house and to rebuild those sheds, give us everything you can. God will make it happen. He's made us build a house that said it couldn't be done, and we've done that. My great-grandfather helped start this town with being a sponge diver there, George LaCourse. And we've been here, our family, forever. So this is going to get taken care of. I don't like to live like that in that disarray. We don't have our flooring down. And we've got the flooring because we're having to live with plywood because we're tearing and doing construction, and we're only limited to do sometimes an hour or so a day.
I understand. Officer Gasson, do you have any questions?
Real quick, you stated, do you understand exactly what the violations are?
Yes, sir, the sheds. The debris we've cleaned up,
Just
right?
the 3
sheds.
Right, you understand you just cannot have more than 300 square feet.
The one on the side.
I just had a question.
I can sell that. The back one's coming off, and I've already bought the metal for the roof.
Okay, I just want to make sure you understand 300 square
I've
feet.
got to be able to install the air conditioning, install these materials before I can tear the shed down.
Okay, so you understand 300 square feet?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yeah,
That's-
and
have
I
no
got
further
you. I
questions.
got you. I've already got the walls, wood, and everything for it.
Thank
So
you
the
very
canopy's
much.
fine,
Does the
right?
board, Rick,
No?
does the board have any questions for the respondent?
Forget about the entire job. If you absolutely had to get rid of these storage facilities in order to come into compliance, how long would that take you? If you decided that's a primary thing, I want to stop whatever fine may or may not be imposed, how much time would you need?
90, 120 days, so I can make places for the tools and the materials and install what I have to. Then I'll have one shed piled up till I can finish building the back of it to make it under 300 square feet, because I wanted to put a little awning and enlarge it a little bit, but I've got all the materials to do it. It's just of moving something around to be able to install something so I have more room. I'm trying to just push it all forward. I just got out of the hospital. I was in there from Christmas till the 3rd of January. So I pushed myself to get the back of this house like it was. We just redid the 2 the back porch roofs and the laundry room roofs. And I'm not really physically able to do it, but I'm pushing myself to do it. I'm just asking y'all, begging y'all, please give me as many days as you can, and I guarantee you that you'll see a huge difference.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Close the public portion of this and request a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented and law that at the time of the alleged violation, sections City Code 6.1 IPMC, City Code IMPC, IPMC 302.7, and City Code 36.01 of the ordinances of the city of Tarpon Springs were in force and effect, and that the respondents were in violation there.
Second.
Bobby,
Yes, sir.
can you do a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. DeMasis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wallace? Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Name people. Mr. Weeks?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Officer Gasson, can you give us an idea of time and?
The accessory structures were cited in October, and I know he asked for 6 months, but I think he's already had 3. So if I go another 90 days, the city would recommend 90 days, 3 months, and $25 a day. He's got no prior history to speak of.
Okay. Motion?
I
Make a
move,
motion. I move that the respondents shall have until April 24th, 2019, to bring the property into compliance with code sections 6.1, 302.7, and 36.01, or suffer a fine of $25.
Second.
Bobby, can you do a roll call, please?
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Talia?
Yes.
Mr. DeMasis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs? Mrs. Wade?
yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes. The board has found that you have, you were in violation, that you have till April the 21st to get.
24th.
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 That'll be perfect.
To do that. And if you don't get it done by then, it's $25 a day.
I got you. We'll get it.
thereafter. And I
Thank you very
wanna
much,
thank you.
board. Mr. Gasky. Y'all have a nice evening.
Thank
I've got to go.
Okay.
You gonna be okay? Okay. To members of the board, I've got to leave. I have another commission meeting in the city of Dunedin, and so I'm going to exit.
Stage right.
Stage right. You're almost done with your meeting. I have my phone on if there are questions, Bobby, and I'll be available by phone. I'll give you that phone number.
Thank you.
The next case is number 11, 18-800000921, 708 Lincoln Avenue. Sylvester Murray Estates, care of John Murray.
Thank you, sir.
Is that you? Okay, Officer Gasson.
Thanks. 18-8000921, 708 Lincoln Avenue, Sylvester Murray's estate, care of John Murray. This is a vacant lot in the city. Exhibit number 1 are my photographs. Exhibit number 2, notice of violations and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3, administrative docs, property appraiser and tax collector records. And exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting. All my notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by Pinellas County property appraiser and tax collector. All notice of violations and notice of hearings are sent return receipt, as well as first-class mail. And Mr. Chairman, please accept all these exhibits into the record as evidence.
Bobby, accept those into.
Yes, sir.
This is a vacant lot in the 700 block of Lincoln, south of Martin Luther King. On November 17th, I conducted initial inspection. The lot was overgrown in the rear, primarily towards the back. The fence was in poor condition, and there's pepper trees on the property. As the board's aware, under 13303, if you ever had a certificate of occupancy, there used to be a structure on that property. So a certificate of occupancy was issued, which means you can no longer have any Brazilian pepper trees on the property for perpetuity. November 20th, I mailed the notice of violation. It was returned signed. On December 11th, I conducted a reinspection. At that time, there was no change. December 12th, the notice of hearing was mailed. We did not receive a return receipt. I posted the property December 29th.
conducted another inspection on the 9th of January of 2019. Basically, the lot was cleared, and the only thing that remained was a pepper tree. So the only thing before the board today is 133.03, and I have nothing further.
Does the board have any questions for Officer Gasson? Close the public portion of this, and we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented, and law that at the time of the alleged violation, section 133.03 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondent was in violation thereof.
Second.
Roll call, Bobby?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
There's a lot of priors on there, although it's not anything to do with this, but I would say the city would recommend 45 days and $50 a day is fine.
Didn't 45 days and
45 days and $50 a day as a fine, 50.
I still didn't hear the dollar amounts.
$50.
50.
Okay, public portion of,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
do you have any questions? Close the public portion, and we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the respondent shall have until March 15th, 2019 to bring the property into compliance with section 133.03 of the code sections of the City of Tarpon Springs, or suffer a fine of $50 per day for each day thereafter the respondent remains in violation of such code section.
Second.
Bobby, can you take a roll call, please?
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis? Yes. Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Move to agenda number 14, repeat violator at 18-8000879, 1420 Silver Oak Drive, Charles Savoy or Charles J. Savoy. New violation was done. We're just looking for an affidavit of prosecution cost.
No. This one's a repeat violator.
Okay, go ahead.
This is case number, as you stated, 18-800000879. The property address is 1420 Silver Oak Drive, property owner Charles Savio. This is a repeat violator case from November 9th of 2018 to November 17th of 2018 for a total of 9 days. The case that spawned this was 18-800000335, established under violations of City Code 8-40, 8-52, and 36.03. Currently, there were fines running on that case, and it came into compliance. There are unpaid fines on this property or on that owner. It is actually a different property that he owns, and totaling $1,302. So moving forward, exhibit number 1 before the board are the photographs. Exhibit number 2 are all my notices, notice of violation, notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3, administrative docs, case summary, property appraiser, tax collector records. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign, and exhibit number 5 are affidavit of prosecution costs. All my notices were mailed to the property owner of record, determined by Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. All notice of violations and notice of hearing are sent return receipt, as well as first class mail. And Mr. Chairman, please accept all these exhibits into the record as evidence.
Please do that, Bobby, please.
Yes, sir.
Any questions of Officer Gass? I'm gonna make you a doctor.
That's okay. I've tried to call you ma'am like 14 times now. Or madam.
No questions. Public portion will be closed, and
I haven't given you my case
ahead.
yet.
Sorry.
The case started November 9th. There was tree debris in the front yard. November 14th, The notice of violation, notice of hearing, repeat violator, notice of hearing were all mailed. They were returned signed. November 20th, I conducted a reinspection, still not in compliance. The trash and debris was in the trash cans curbside, and it's not trash day until Thursday, and unfortunately, I can't remember what date November 20th is, but it was more than 24 hours, otherwise I wouldn't have put that in there. It would appear that trash was out yesterday, so it was Friday, it was November 20th, and it would have been picked up. There are also empty cans left curbside. November 28th, there was still debris in the cans curbside. December 29th, I posted the property, and I found that it was in compliance of all the violations. So what's before the board is 8-22, accumulation of trash. Actually, disregard that. 8-52 is the only violation that's before the board as a repeat violator. It was just 8-52 for a period of 9 days, and I have nothing further. Yes, ma'am.
Catherine?
No, go ahead.
So that there was a violation, they seem to comply with it, and then there's a re-violation, is that what you're saying?
No, it was a combination of the two because there was trash and debris, kind of the discussion we had earlier. There's trash and then there's debris. So
Okay.
852 kind of covers debris and not mowing your yard. 822 is specifically where I 100% know it's trash, but unfortunately debris is defined as yard waste, tree debris from landscaping, so that's why. But the 822 was cleaned up when it was all dumped,
Yeah.
and they were not a repeat violator for 822, only a repeat violator for 852.
Okay.
I'll close the public portion of this and ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I move that based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented in law, that the respondents were in violation of sections 8-52 of the Tarpon Springs City Code from 11/9/2018 to 11/17/2018, a total of 9 days, with a fine of $25 per day for a total of $225. And in addition, I move that the city be awarded $106 as the cost of prosecution of this case.
Can we have a question?
Second.
The previous one we just did was $50 for almost the same kind of thing. I just didn't quite understand.
That's what I felt was justified. You can determine any cost you want. I also noticed that they have complied in certain respects. So that's my opinion, was $25.
As had the other one.
You can certainly vote down my motion and make your own motion and find whatever you feel is justified.
And do we have a second on that?
I seconded it, yes.
Okay, great.
Mr.
Can we have a,
One moment. Mr. DeMasis, what was the daily fine? I'm sorry,
The date of what, ma'am?
the per day fine.
$25. was
Yes,
what
sir. Thank you,
what
sir.
My motion included.
Thank you. Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMasis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to the next.
The only thing I'd like to say, Mr. Chairman, is in determining what I felt was a proper fine, I try to take each case on its own individual merit. So the fact that one might be 25, the one might be 50, one might be 100, okay? I don't necessarily feel that just because the rule violation or the alleged rule violation is similar, that necessarily negates or necessitates the same fine. So that's just, I'd like to make
Definitely
that point.
understood. Thank you, sir.
And I agree.
Thanks for clarifying.
Number 16?
Would that be 720 Locust Street, case
Yeah.
number 916?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a repeat violator case as well from November 15th, 2018 to January 9th, I believe it was, 53 days total. The repeat violator case that they were established under was case 18-800000005, and that was a violation of City Code 8-40 and 8-52. The code board heard that case on March 8th of 18, gave them a deadline of April 15th of 18, or suffer a fine of $25 per day. They complained, they did comply by the deadline, so there were no fines assessed in that previous case, but they were established. Case before the board is 18-800000916. Address 720 Locust Street. David Van Wingener is the property owner. Exhibit 1 is the photographs. Exhibit 2 are notices, NOVs, and NOHs. Exhibit 3 are administrative docs, property appraiser and tax collector records, and any related emails. Exhibit 4, affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. And exhibit number 5 is the affidavit of prosecution costs. All the notices were mailed to property owner of record, determined by Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. All notice of violations and hearings are sent, return receipt as well as first class. And Mr. Chairman, please accept all the exhibits into the record as evidence.
Bobby, would you put those into evidence, please?
Yes, sir.
We have had contact with the owner via email, but the original case started on November 15th from a complaint. The property was overgrown. There was trash and debris on the property, and there was an old television curbside, and the front porch is full of trash and debris, as you can see in the photographs. November 16th, the notice of violation, notice of hearing, and a repeat violator notice of hearing were all mailed. They were returned signed by the owner. I posted the property on December 29th and completed the affidavit of posting. I did complete a final inspection on January 9th and found the property to be in compliance. And basically what's before the board is the repeat violator for 8-40 and 8-52 for the period of 53 days. And as I stated earlier, it was previously assessed a fine of $25 per day for those same violations. Basically the same conditions at the house. It's a tenant. He lives out of state, and his tenant seems to want to store all their stuff out on the front porch.
Thank you very much. Close the public portion of this meeting and go ahead and entertain a motion.
I move, based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented in law, that the respondent was in violation of sections 8-40 and 8-52. Presently is in compliance, but was in violation between the dates of 11/15/2018 and 01/6/2019.
I'm sorry, my testimony should have been the 6th. I apologize. 6th for 53 days.
Okay, for a total of 53 days. It's brought in, it's now in compliance, and a fine of $50 per day shall be imposed until, for the time period while the violation was occurring.
Second.
And also, I'm sorry, also that the prosecution costs of $106 should be included.
Second.
I still second.
I think Bruce got there first.
That's just fine.
Okay.
That's my new name.
Can we
Have a roll call?
have a roll call?
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Tallier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMassis?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Please your roll call. Please your new cases.
Then we need to establish the new
Chairman, are we
violation,
getting
right?
towards the end here, sir?
We are, yeah.
Don't- Do we need to establish the new violation also?
We could table those
No,
till,
it's,
we could table those till next year.
On that same one?
No.
Was there a new violation on
They-
that?
Oh, since it's
They
complied?
complied.
Okay.
Yeah.
Affidavits of compliance.
Okay,
Got
now,
it.
which, affidavit?
Sorry, there's one of them that's kind of unique. He's here for 710 Pent.
That's the first
Okay,
one
never
up.
mind, sorry, I'll shut up.
First one up.
I wasn't paying attention.
Okay. I did that right. How about that?
You did?
Yeah. Okay, affidavits of non-compliance. Number 18.
Did that one.
Did
Number
that one
19.
first, yeah.
Number 1 today.
About 19.
Gosh, yeah.
The case number 18412, he's here for, and it may be interesting, and we may have to do something with it, especially since Mr. Trask isn't here, so.
We didn't hear any of that.
Case 18412, 710 Penn Street is an affidavit of noncompliance. He's here for.
Let's pull it up.
Yeah, but I
Handle it.
don't think he's the owner, because he's in China. But he might have something, so depending on that, and there were some other issues with this case that we may get into, and we may just hear it some other day. So,
Okay.
we'll start there. Yeah,
So which one was that? That was
it was
number 19?
1800412, 710 Penn
Got it.
Street.
Number 19.
It's an affidavit of noncompliance.
So we're going to table that for next meeting?
Well, I
Mr.
wanna see what
Chairman,
he has.
Might
Oh,
I
he's
make
right
a
here.
suggestion as a former chairman
Sure.
sitting in your seat and a former vice chairman on this committee, that you may want to either consult with Mr. Trask and so that we make a determination as to what this gentleman's legal standing is in order to represent the person in question, the entity in question that's Wang. That's just a suggestion. You don't necessarily have to take my suggestion, but I think you might want to determine what this gentleman's status is.
That was the same road I was going to go down, is to see what his position is to represent.
Where is he? Oh,
Yep.
hey, how you doing?
I'm
Can
doing
you
all right. How are
tell
you?
me what your relationship is with DeLang Wang?
I'm his tenant.
You're the tenant.
Yeah, my uncle was Larry Pridgeon, who I guess came in last time.
Okay.
Yeah, and with that being said, I think we should probably hear this, because there was some fraudulent accusations made that he did not have authority to speak on behalf of the property owner. So rather than object and move forward with accepting the affidavit of noncompliance, I think it would be reasonable for us to rehear this. I would actually probably suggest that Mr. Wang have a rehearing, since he's alleging that the person that came in here wasn't lawfully allowed to testify on his behalf and fraudulently took money from him, which is a whole different issue. So rather than get this board embroiled in something that we probably don't need to, especially with Mr. Trask not here, we should probably just rehear that.
So in other words, table it for today?
Let's table that.
Table it to next.
I would ask the board to consider tabling that. And if you want to do a motion to do that, that would
Thought
be.
you wanted to rehear. You want to rehear, your chair would just set a time for next month to be heard. But the chair can do that at this time, and he'll get a notification that it will be reheard next month at the next code enforcement board.
Okay, thanks, Bobby. We're going to rehear this case, but it'll be next month. I'm sorry for you having to stay
Are
here
you
so
serious?
long.
I don't know if I'll be able to make it to it, but here, he wanted me to turn in these papers. It's just a letter that he wrote you guys and basically giving me to represent him. And then money transfers equaling $4,000 to Larry Pridgeon to work on the house.
Bring that in or have him bring it in.
Well, he's in China. He's not coming. That's why I came today and took time off of work. I've been here for like 4 hours.
I think, Bobby, if we can just look at rehearing it, we'll look at the paperwork and we'll discuss it with Mr. Trask.
Can
and
you
deal
take
with
his paperwork today as it would be any type of evidence submitted to you for your new rehearing? Can you do that, since he can't be at the actual meeting next time?
If that's lawfully allowed, I have no issue with that.
I mean, if he's gonna rehear your case next month, this is evidence for his case.
Yeah.
From his uncle, it'd be like any other evidence that you would get and present at the meeting, correct?
I just have does the
Okay, we'll call Mr. Trask.
Yeah.
indicate that is that from Mr. Wang?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, and based on the issues that we had with that, I'd really kind of rather consult with the city attorney before we do anything with the case. And as far as rehearing it, this was an affidavit of noncompliance, not the whole case. This board's already heard that whole case. So I think at this point in time, if we could table it and then we can deal with it later. It's easy enough to table it.
Good. I'm gonna table this.
This is Bobby. Mr. Peak has a question regarding a non-compliance case we're seeing. I'm gonna let him inform you on what he would like to do. And
Mr. Trask, we have a DeLang Wang at 710
I don't know.
Tenth Street.
Usually we call a break about
And,
now.
This person has stated that other people have come in front of the board without his permission in previous time. We do have the tenant here, and he does have a letter from Mr. Wang indicating that he can talk in his behalf. Mm-hmm.
We get overtime pay for this
Okay.
anyway, so. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Nice start.
Okay. All right, thank you
Years
very
I've
much.
been on it. Nobody's ever done. I like it.
Mr. Trask says that all we need to know is whether or not these have been complied with, violations that you set here.
This is an affidavit of noncompliance.
Right.
So they're not in compliance.
So they're not in compliance.
No, that would be my,
So, if you have, if you have authorization to speak in his behalf, you go ahead and do that.
can I review the documents first?
He also wrote a letter in there to
Wait.
you guys.
Yeah, wait just a second.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
I'm sorry, could you tell me your name? I'm sorry.
Adam Stoop.
Adam,
S-T-O-O-P.
thank you, sir.
This is totally different than what you do with everyday life. Makes it refreshing. I like to help. Use it to help people. I think so.
Or don't.
No, this is nothing's notarized or anything like that. It's a letter from somebody with a long Wang signature on the bottom, but I've never seen a signature and nothing's notarized. But if the
Yeah, he
board
sent
feels
it to me in an
comfortable
email.
accepting
Oh,
that, then.
I think we might,
FaceTime
we
or
need-
anything with him?
Mr.
No,
Chairman, I
just
would
emails.
suggest that perhaps we can accept it and judge it on its merits, whatever they might be. You're not really making a ruling on the validity of it, you're just accepting it that that's evidence that was presented.
But okay, I understand. If they're not in compliance, why aren't we just making a motion that they're not in compliance?
Can I just go? I'm just gonna waste my time here.
Yeah, he can always schedule a rehearing. Mr. Wang can always reschedule a rehearing.
He
so.
can reschedule a hearing, but I'd like to get through this because, this is a non-compliant.
Correct.
I think the only reason that we didn't do that was we had this gentleman here representing Mr. Wang. We don't normally have that for these type of
Right.
letters of noncompliance. So I don't know that we should hear any testimony. Okay, one, we wanted to establish who he was, and I think that's the only reason that we ever brought up the point about the letter.
Okay. So I'd like us to.
Because he's not testifying.
I'd like us to close the public portion.
Okay,
And-
you might want to also note on the record that the gentleman has left.
Okay. The gentleman did leave. So if we could get a motion in reference to this, non-compliance affidavit, I'd entertain.
Well, we should just accept it. And we should get a motion to accept.
Okay. Make that motion, would you please, Bruce?
Oh, somebody will, though. These new ones got to try.
Oh, God.
Get your point. Wouldn't matter if anybody
could
was
take a
here or
look
not.
at it.
Matter if
They're not
anybody's
in
here or
compliance.
not.
Take a look through your
They're
book.
not in compliance.
I'll make a
It's
motion.
way back in
Yeah.
there somewhere.
Acceptance
Would it
of
be this
affidavit of
motion for repeat?
non-compliance.
Let's establish. I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violation, sections 8-22, 8-40, 8-52, 40.00 times 2, 6.1 of the building code, and under that IPMC 301.2, 304.6, and 36.03 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect, and the respondent was in violation thereof.
And the affidavit of prosecution.
Oh, you wanna, yeah.
No, we have to do the affidavit
Yeah,
of.
this is an affidavit of noncompliance
Yeah.
with prosecution costs.
Yep.
So it's this one.
With prosecution money, yeah.
Yes, so, put at the end of that.
Do it.
The affidavit of them. Can you do that?
Mm-hmm. And I move that based on this, that the respondent failed to timely comply with this board's order and award the city $113.50 for the costs incurred of prosecuting this case.
Second.
All those, Bobby,
You want a roll call? Okay.
actually, is it okay if I just do a voice?
Can do voice.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Number 20 is our next one. 18-8000690, 444 Athens Street, Living Trust. So, same thing again.
Yes,
Affidavit of
Let's go.
non-compliance, right?
yep, yep,
Okay.
with money.
Okay. I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented and law that the respondents failed to timely comply with the board's prior order within the time prescribed and award to the city $192.50 for the cost incurred in the prosecution of this case.
Second.
Second.
Did we enumerate?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Number 21. 18-800000695,
Same thing.
41918 US Highway 19. Don't ask me to. So, could use another one, just like the other one.
Okay. I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that the respondents failed to timely comply with the board's prior order within the time prescribed and to award the city $116 for the cost incurred in the prosecution of this case.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Same sign for opposed. Motion carries. Number 22, 18-800000701. It's a vacant lot of 757 Bay Shore. Palo Diary LLC. Bruce?
I-
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
she's got it.
He's
I
doing it.
move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented and law that the respondents failed to timely comply with the board's prior order within the time prescribed and award to the city $156.75 for the cost incurred in the prosecution of this case.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. 18-800000722, 423 East Harrison Street.
Thing.
Same thing?
Lexa Miller, same thing.
Okay, I'm on a roll. I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented and law that the respondents failed to timely comply with the board's prior order within the time prescribed and to award the city $158 for the cost incurred in the prosecution of this case.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
One more.
18-800000730, 1415 Oshlerglip Drive, Ellen
Oleander.
Oleander.
All right, I'll bring it home.
Okay, bring it home.
I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented and law that the respondents failed to timely comply with the board's prior order within the time prescribed and to award the city $142 for the costs incurred in prosecuting of this case.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Affidavits of compliance.
You want to read you want to read the numbers first?
18-8000642.
I move we accept the affidavit of compliance in that case and award the city prosecution costs of $156.50.
Second. Who's second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Only one more.
Number 26, 18-800000732.
I move we accept the affidavits of compliance in that case.
Second. I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
We're done.
Approval of minutes. Did you do the minutes, Chloe, or?
There's no minutes, sir.
There's no minutes.
No, sir.
Public comments? Staff?
Public, we left you.
Wait a minute, did you ask for staff comments?
I did, just because they're there.
Okay, well, I'd like to
They said no.
make a comment.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
All right, I would encourage the chairman, based on the length of time that these proceedings seem to be taking, that perhaps in consideration of the board and members in the audience, that we decide on when to take a 20-minute break somewhere during the proceeding. I would suggest that a 2.5 hour point.
Yeah.
All right?
Okay.
The other thing is that if in fact that these proceedings are going to be as lengthy as they seem to be lately, and again, I'm speaking with 4 years prior
understand,
service,
yeah.
and Mr. Kramer, who's got 10 years prior service, I think can back me up. Seems that the proceedings have gotten longer and longer and longer. That's fine, but I think you have to, in consideration of people, we have to decide that there's going to be a break after a certain amount of time. I don't know that anybody can properly sit here for
What about 4
nearly
o'clock?
4 hours.
4 o'clock?
Oh, I got a bag last month, so I could do this.
No, I'm just suggesting that, Mr. Chairman, that you might consider that, or we may consider if the time is stretched out as much as it is, that perhaps we meet at 1 o'clock in the afternoon instead of 2.
We could do that too.
Those are two suggestions I'd like you to at least consider.
And the third suggestion
We'll do
is
in
that
one.
about 4:30 we should start bringing in cocktails. Then we don't really care if it's 6:30.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
It's just, that you can't go 4 hours.
Learning a lot.
Hey, I got rid of like 5 cases, so.
Oh.
Did a good job.